Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 4 of What If Naruto was in high school DxD and got a harem with Serafall, Kuroka and Yasaka. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Ijuka-sama. A servant shouted. Hey, Ijuka-san, some help here, the blonde shouted. Relax, I don't think they'll do anything rash, maybe, he said, somewhat recovered after the immense pressure. You don't think anything will happen after that little incident, right? Naruto asked hopefully. This will definitely cause a commotion, and a big one at that. It's not every day that you feel a demonic power that could make more than one think that it's the original Lucifer. There could be several people believing that, somehow, Lucifer is still alive. Well, that would definitely be very bad. Anyway, this is going to take time to fix. While explaining the possibilities that could occur, he slowly stood up. The blonde saw what he was trying to do and reached out his hand to help, something that Ijuka took very quickly and gratefully. His body was shaking. If he didn't hold on to something or someone, he probably wouldn't stand up for a long time. Thanks. Now moving on with this. I should talk to the others and try to calm everything down. We might be able to do that, but the elders are going to want an explanation. Why do I have to come back again? He thought as he let out a defeated sigh. Now he had to leave his laboratory and get into Mao stuff. If he didn't die of boredom in his meetings, he would be lucky. Sorry, I didn't think doing that would cause all this. He bowed his head in apology. He had gotten all the Mao into trouble, and he had embarked on another one. It seemed that trouble and strange situations were always on his side. It would be best to go with Serafall right now, he said, stopping completely. I'll try to call Serafall to come with us, and I hope Falbium isn't sleeping again. Okay, but where exactly is Serafall? You don't know where he lives? No. Really? Yes, seriously, I don't know. I guess we have a problem. What if I take you like I did with Serafall? There is no other option, so let's go at once. Moments later. Stop, 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 a dizzy Ijuka shouted. The disadvantages of having a body that could barely stand at that moment was how easily susceptible it was to everything. One of those was dizziness when going at high speeds. But, I'm barely going at normal speed. If I tell him I'm going slow, I think I'll provoke something in him. Why do you want me to go slower, Ijuka-san? Normal. Everything looks distorted. Can't you see that we're going too fast? He said as best he could before feeling the urge to vomit, something he certainly hadn't done in many years. And he might possibly do it again in the very near future. No, it's probably because I'm used to this. Although Serafall didn't complain, he thought as he remembered that the Mao was somehow having fun being in the position Ijuka was in. Well, leaving that aside. We're almost there. I didn't think you could go that fast, Ijuka said with nervousness in his voice. So which direction was it? Naruto asked. Serafall. The red-haired Mao was nervous. A few minutes ago, he felt a demonic aura much stronger than him. The power he felt made him remember the stories about the power that Lucifer had. He was still a child when they told him, but he would never forget it. He could never have experienced that power in the flesh due to the time difference, but if the power that could be felt from him was the same as a moment ago, it gave him chills just remembering it. Not for nothing was he the one who led all the demons. Letting out a sigh, he began to walk a few laps around his office. He wanted something that could distract him right now. However, with Graphia accompanying him, that would be difficult or downright impossible. Serafall-sama, please stop pacing around in place and start working on a countermeasure for what just happened. Graphia said seriously. Come on, Graphia. We don't even know where that presence came from, it was simply noticed throughout the underworld. She answered without stopping to spin. This is undoubtedly worrying. What could be felt was almost the same as Lucifer. Or at least it is supposed to be like that. I suppose we will have some problems at any moment, she said as she felt someone approaching the room. Without saying anything else, he stopped near the door, and almost at the same time a servant began to knock on it. Just in time. Excuse me, Serafall-sama, the servant said, waiting for some command. You can come in, he replied immediately. Having been ordered, he entered without delay and stood in front of Serafall while lowering his head. Beelzebub-sama is calling for you, he is waiting in the living room. He asked you to go to him as soon as possible. Oh, it didn't take long for him to arrive. Strange though, I didn't sense his presence. Just like Serafall did at the meeting, he's definitely intriguing, what would that cause? Go back and tell him I'll be there in a few minutes, I have to do something first. With Serafall. The day for her was certainly bitter, she was happy to see Naruto. But, after what he had said when they were alone, she couldn't stop being depressed. It was a unanimous decision for her, that she wouldn't do what she said. It was a big no, if she did that they would probably never see each other again. She didn't want that, she wanted to spend more time with him, why did she have to do that? It was what kept coming to her mind. She wished with all her being that he wouldn't do it, there were more things she wanted to do, however she didn't want to get involved in the things that were important to him, so she decided to help him. Even if doing so would somehow slowly destroy her, so she made a decision, she hoped it would turn out well since she would do it on the same day she had to do it. As she continued with her thoughts, she began to feel chills as she felt the demonic power that emerged from nowhere. She was paralyzed, it was much stronger than Sears's. If she could feel it, then all of her fellow carriers did too, except for Falbium if he wasn't asleep. He began to feel alarmed, if they were from the old faction then they would have another war. He couldn't imagine that, just knowing that his little sister would be involved in an act of war didn't please him in the least. "Hey, Serafall, can you hear me?" said a voice in a magic circle that appeared in her ear. "Huh, Ijuka-chan?" she asked somewhat dazed. "Yes, it's me. You see, there's one thing I'll ask you." "And what is that?" "Something easy, just go with Sears's. There we can talk about a small accident, you must have felt it, right?" "Small accident? What exactly is going on?" "I'll tell you everything once you arrive, don't delay." Without saying anything else, the magic circle disappeared, leaving them out with doubts. Now I had to go to Sears's office, it seems that the day is going to have a lot of work in between. With Naruto. "Hey, Kurama, do you think there is any simple solution to fix this?" "Of course, I don't think it's complicated to cover this. At least in the medium and long term, but in the short term. You should get the idea." "Why yes, of course I get that idea." "Sigh never mind, anyway, how are you supposed to do that? Do you even know that it could help?" "Well, I might have an idea or two." I would certainly like to hear that, although, it seems our time is up. You have to fix a certain problem, see you later Gaki." As Kurama finished speaking, two magic circles appeared in the room where he was with Ijuka. He thought about putting himself on alert, but since the Mao next to him didn't do anything, he calmed down. It was probably both Serafall and Falbium. "Oh, come on. How could I be such an idiot? It's clearly them," he screamed mentally and held back the urge to hit himself in the head. "Oh, hey Naruto," a cheerful Mao Leviathan shouted. "Hello." He returned the greeting with the same enthusiasm. "Hello to you too, Falbium-san." He greeted with a question when he saw that it wasn't even a few seconds before the Mao fell asleep even though he had just arrived. "Is it always like this?" Yes, the two Mao said at the same time with a drop on their heads. "Great, everyone is here now. Wait, where is Falbium?" asked a newly arrived Sears's. All pointing in one direction, they drew a drop at Sears's, who was watching his partner's typical act. "I guess there's nothing that can be done. By the way, Naruto. Once we're done talking here, could you join me for a moment?" "Do you want to tell me something important alone?" he asked with doubt clear in his voice. "Yes," he replied with a smile. "In this very place?" "No, I would prefer you to follow me to my room." With just that, Naruto walked away from him with a pale face and began to hug himself. "What happened? I didn't know you had those tastes Sears's," Naruto said as far away from the aforementioned as possible. At first the other two Mao didn't understand what all the fuss was about, until something clicked in their heads. Opening their eyes wide in surprise, they spoke as they stood in front of Naruto. "Sears's, how can you do that?" said a nervous Serafall without using the typical chant. But, I think it's my only option." "Hey, Sears's, you're not serious about what you're trying to do, right?" Of course, it's a matter of life or death. With just that, the three of them moved a little further away from him, Serafall hugging Naruto protectively and Ijuka simply standing in front of them with a complicated expression on her face. "What's wrong with you?" a very confused Serafall asked. "I should say that," a Serafall shouted, somewhat protective of the blonde. "Tell me, Serafall," he said, swallowing some saliva. "What exactly do you want with Naruto?" he asked, looking into his friend's eyes. This was supposed to be a secret, but, approaching them, she looked directly at Naruto and lowered her head, speaking again. "Please, this request is probably very hasty and selfish, but right now you are the only option I have." "Are you really going to go that far for that?" Naruto asked. "Yes, if it's up to Rias I would do anything to help him." "Huh," they all said at the same time. "Are you asking me for help with Rias for some reason?" "Yes, what else could I do?" he said, standing normally. "Well, I don't know about you, but a man coming with a sparkle in his eyes looking at another man and asking him to go with him to his room, because he wants him to help him with something, doesn't that sound like something to you?" said a Serafall staring at him. Serafall didn't understand anything at first, until he abruptly opened his eyes. No, I swear I would never think like that. I have a wife and I also want to have a future child. A desperate Serafall shouted. Making a big drop of sweat fall from the three people in front of him, they simply sighed. They had misunderstood things, they should certainly pay more attention and not jump to non-existent facts. "Well, leaving aside the incident now, I guess I'll wait for you outside," said a much calmer Naruto. "Alright, I think you should do that. But, I have some unfinished business to discuss with you. I asked Grafia to take you to Rias, after all, she really wanted to spend more time playing. Could you do that?" he asked with a smile. "Sure, no problem. Then, see you later, Serafall, Ijuka-san, Serafall and Falbium-san. Since when is he awake?" "Oh, I just woke up, a little nap before a meeting is welcome." Why is it that most of the leaders of something are strange? Naruto asked himself. Outside the room, Serafall, Queen was patiently waiting for the blonde's arrival. It was curious for her to know that with his arrival strange situations began to arise. Maybe the blonde was just unlucky or he was just a magnet for trouble. Either one could be the answer, but he couldn't decide which one he should consider as the answer. How much longer will I have to wait? Grafia wondered. As if his words were law itself, the blonde left at that very moment. Hello, Naruto said, asking questions, not knowing how to start a conversation with the person in front of him. At first glance she was very serious, so it would be better not to try to offend her. Serafall-sama told you where we were going, right? The silver-haired queen said. Yes, without saying anything else the queen began to advance, while Naruto followed her step. I guess we never properly introduced ourselves, so I think now would be a good time. I'll go first, my name is Naruto, he said as they walked down the halls. The silence between them was deadly, it seemed as if they were lifelong enemies if one were to see them walking. But, it was simply because Naruto didn't know how to talk to such serious people in a casual way. Letting out a light sigh, the silver-haired girl introduced herself. My name is Grafia and I am Serafall-sama's queen, it is a pleasure. She said no more than that, leaving them in deathly silence once again. I think this is the first time I've had a hard time talking to someone. Well, it's not like I have an extreme need to talk to her. Dismissing the speech problems between them in his thoughts, he continued following Grafia. Rias-sama is in this room, in a few hours Serafall-sama will come here, so I suggest you don't move too much from this area. Grafia said standing next to the doors while looking directly into the blonde's eyes. Sure, no problem. Anyway, Serafall said he was going to talk to me about something, so I'll be waiting for him. The blonde replied with a smile, trying to at least get on the good side of the Lucifer Queen. In that case, I'll leave the care of Rias-sama to you. I have a few more things to do that require my presence immediately. Bowing, she said goodbye to the blonde while preparing a magic circle to disappear after a few seconds. As good as it would be to be able to do magic, he said dejectedly. He didn't want it to get more forms of power, but because of how versatile it seemed at first glance. It would be like a dream to be able to create ramen whenever I wanted, he spoke dreamily to nothing. Okay, leaving aside how incredibly cool it would be to do that. I think I should go in already. I wonder, why is he narrating what he says? A puzzled Kurama said to himself with a drop on his head. With Rias. The little redhead was upset, bored, sad, and there were probably several other emotions she was feeling at that moment. All because of one simple person, the one who caused her to not be able to escape again, so she could play with her newest friend. Plus, her parents were still acting weird in some ways and didn't want her to go out. She was still very young, but not an idiot, at least not most of the time. Now, she had a mystery she wanted to uncover. Why were her parents acting like this? What was it that made them flatly refuse to let her go? Those and many more questions were lurking in her head, if only someone could help her right now. As if fate itself wanted to help, someone knocked on the door. But she still didn't have many expectations about who it would be. "May I come in?" said a voice he instantly recognized. "Of course I do," he shouted with clear joy. I'm not interrupting anything, right?" Naruto asked already inside the room. No, I wasn't doing anything important," she replied happily as a lock of hair moved happily somehow. "You sure are excited, did something good happen?" he said as he bent down and stroked the redhead's head. Which she happily accepted, it felt nice somehow. Almost like her brother did. "Yes," she answered happily as Naruto stopped petting her. "Oh, so what is that good thing?" he asked with a smile. "You," she said with a smile as she hugged him. I guess that's the nicest thing I've ever been to in my entire life, and to think that someone in another universe would say that to me. I'm glad to be so well received. Since I'm here, why don't we do something fun? Anything in mind?" She answered thoughtfully while the lock of hair she had moved from one side to the other expressing some doubt. "I think I know what we can do," she said with a smile while pointing to a giant television. "What could happen if I just keep watching whatever I want to watch?" he thought without giving it much thought. Not expecting to end up hooked in some way in that world. And with a slight existential question that will haunt him for the rest of his life, but that's a story for another time. Several hours later. "Sorry for the delay, Naruto, but," an unexpected Serafall appeared where the blonde and his sister were. He fell silent when he saw that both of them didn't take their eyes off the television, letting out a sigh already knowing the probability that Rias had hooked the blonde on a possible fanaticism for Japanese culture. "I just hope it's not too late," she said, praying to whoever it was so that another person obsessed with that world wouldn't appear. Naruto and Rias said at the same time. Sigh, how did she agree to watch that so easily? "Well, I have to stop this before it's too late," said a nervous Mao. If there was something that wasn't nice to see, it was a furious Rias for not letting her watch the anime she had. She would surely get a scolding from her sister, but nothing that can't be solved with a figure of some character. "Are you okay, Naruto?" she asked when she saw the blonde again. His gaze was lost, somehow reflecting fear and confusion. "Serafall," the blonde said slowly. "You are a real person, right?" he finished asking with a lost look. "I guess it depends on who you ask." Saying that, the blonde somehow expressed great confusion. "What I'm trying to tell you is that depending on the person, they may or may not affirm about my existence. In this world, there are many beings from different mythologies, people usually take them as myths, others made a religion out of them. Do you see what I'm getting at?" he asked with a slight smile. "Yes, I think so," he answered thoughtfully. What had happened to the blonde to ask that? The Mao wouldn't know until later. "Now," Serafall said looking at Rias. "I need to take it for a moment." "No problem," the redhead exclaimed happily. "That was easier than I thought. In that case, follow me, Naruto." Serafall's room. After walking around for a few moments, entering and receiving a cup of tea, the blonde was a little uneasy. The atmosphere he was in was serious, perhaps too serious. Something that certainly did not suit the blonde, at least not at the moment. "Since we're here, tell me. Is what Ajuka told me about that incident true?" A more serious than usual Serafall asked. Yes, I didn't know that could happen. I was just trying to make it happen, but something happened that apparently triggered something else without me being able to feel it. He answered in the same way. So that was just something without any form of control. Exactly, I don't understand when it happened. I could only see Ajuka-san on the ground and telling me that what happened was felt throughout the underworld. I guess that could be a problem too. Do you think you can summon it again without it having such a big presence? I couldn't say for sure, but I have a slight hunch that it is. Sai, have you ever thought about how you manage to get into complicated things? He asked in a defeated tone. Why do I feel like that line feels the same as what someone would tell me? I wish I knew that too, he answered somewhat embarrassed. Well, leaving that aside, I had to ask you a small favor. As long as it's not something about having to fight someone or extinguish some kind of village, I might agree to help. He said, giving his thumbs up while smiling. Why would he think I want to do an extermination? There is nothing like that, so don't worry. Saying that, Naruto calmed down. The Mao's previous question possibly won't go away in the near future. The favor I'm going to ask of you is something important to me, as well as being my last option in case all else fails. So, you can still have time to think about whether to accept or not. In the future I will personally go to ask for your answer when necessary, so. Will you listen to this? Worried me. Several days later. Sea-Tree Mansion. Pav Sona. The day had started slowly, perhaps too slowly. With nothing to do and nothing that had happened, aside from the few times Naruto does what he calls training, there was nothing that could be considered interesting. I wanted to learn magic, but my sister wouldn't let me do anything until I was at least 1 year older, with the excuse of having to take advantage of my childhood before being fully immersed in the supernatural world. There are pros and cons to living in this world, possibly having a few more cons for those who are demons. Sometimes I wish I wasn't the next head of the Sea-Tree house, but if I wasn't I wouldn't be able to gain knowledge easily. Maybe I could get something if I had been born with magic so strong that it would have been undeniable to teach me how to use it. Unfortunately, miracles don't exist for demons. It's more of a chain of power. If you don't have it, you're useless. If you have it, then you'll have to use it as far as it will take you. However, there is one good thing in all of it. Having my own nobility is seen as something incredible. Having as companions people with different stories and experiences, who could help you keep moving forward, also deciding to give their life for their teacher if he was so important to them, being able to act like a family, it all sounds great and I hope one day to have one that can achieve the goals I have. Finish Pav Sona. With Naruto. Ah! The blonde shouted as he hit the rock in front of him. To be honest, taijutsu was not his strong point, at least he could use his clones to perform improvised attacks. Those directionless attacks saved him so many times that he tried to do some kind of improvised style using his clones and himself as a base. While that might serve momentarily, he wouldn't always be able to have clones at his disposal to help him. There might come a time when he couldn't use any chakra, and if he didn't have at least a foundation on the style he needed, he could easily lose in a one-on-one. For that reason, he decided to start trying to create a style of his own. Something that was certainly not easy, but since he had seen two masters in taijutsu for several years, he could use a few things from them. He would still have a long way to go to get it, however he would no longer be a complete novice when trying to do it. Come on Gaki. With more concentration, try to make the damage go to a single point and not disperse it everywhere, that way you could deliver a powerful blow without the need to kill someone with a single blow, his tenant shouted seriously. It's strange that you don't want me to kill anything or anyone in one hit, he told her mentally with clear confusion. Can't you figure out why? He questioned in a mocking voice. Enlighten me, great Jubi, he answered with clear sarcasm. Even so, Kurama completely ignored his tone. What would be the point of it all if you could just finish it in one fell swoop? Won't you get bored pretty quickly with that? If you put it that way, I think you're right, he said as he imagined himself always being bored. If all the fights ended in one fell swoop, the emotions he had would probably disappear at some point. Meanwhile, in a distant universe, a bald man in a cape somehow sensed that someone was almost following his steps. Is something wrong, sensei? Asked what seemed to be a cyborg. I think someone was about to follow my same path, he answered somewhat thoughtfully. Anyway, that doesn't matter now, what really matters now is getting the offers. Come on Genos, he replied cheerfully. Yes sensei. Back with Naruto. I just felt something strange, I guess it doesn't matter. He said, dismissing his feeling. It's a shame you can't use that Senju's taijutsu, it would have helped if you had Mokuten. Although, it's possible that. What are you talking about? It's not important for now, keep doing what I told you. You have to control your strength when hitting. What are you doing Naruto? Asked a curious Serafall who appeared out of nowhere. When was she behind me? I didn't expect anything from you and yet you still managed to disappoint me, he said with a sigh. Sorry, okay. I'm not a paranoid who tries to keep everyone on my radar thinking they're enemies, he replied somewhat resentfully. Okay, I guess I could let this slide, but only because we're in allied territory, he commented in a resigned voice. Is everything okay? Serafall asked again when she saw that the blonde didn't respond. Why yeah, everything's fine, it's just that, I didn't expect you to be behind me. He answered in the most casual way possible. Okay then, I was looking for you because Ajuka-chan gave me some interesting information that I wanted to try out on you, but since he was busy at the moment, he told me that he would help you with this and then we could give him some notes. By the way, what is he supposed to be investigating with you? He said with curiosity in his eyes. Do you not know about Yamato? Or did you simply not understand what Ajuka-san told you? Well, it is something I cannot refuse to help. After all, I am the only one who can use it. So if it was an object, Serafall whispered while having a thoughtful face. Oh, I know, she exclaimed happily. Know what? Exactly. Nothing tilde. Now, Ajuka-chan told me that what you have can cut through anything and even realities, so I wanted to know if you could do that. Come on, try it. It sounds easier than it looks, it's not like I can just cut into nothing and make some kind of portal, right? So, did he tell you anything else about how much power I should use or anything like that? Naruto asked, staring at her. Did I forget, she said, somewhat embarrassed. So it's just going to be a random shot, huh? A dejected blonde said. Okay, we have to do it, I just hope it doesn't cause another problem, he commented somewhat nervously. He didn't want to cause more problems, he had already done several of them in such a short time. Come on, tilde, Serafall said in a playful manner. I don't think anything will happen, but if you want I can make a barrier that at least manages to hold up. I'm not sure it will be effective, but it's still better than nothing, right? I guess that could help. Okay, let's do it. The blonde exclaimed with a smile. And after the exchange of words, the Mao made the barrier as quickly as possible and with a good part of her magic. It was very possible that it would not hold anyway. She wanted to try, one never knows what one can achieve if one does not try. Ready. Whenever you want. With that said, the blonde began to concentrate his chakra like the last time, but this time progressively. Wanting to know to what point he could materialize the weapon he had. It wasn't long before he could feel something that seemed to be in his left hand. Is this okay? He asked himself without even looking around. Yes, everything looks okay. This time looking around he could notice that the Mao in front of him, nothing was happening to her at all. It's just like you say Gaki, even if the first time I couldn't fully notice the energy that supposedly emerged, right now I am able to feel the power in the blade. It must be because now it is a power that you can control, in some way. Since you can use it now, why don't you try to do what that dwarf tells you, Kurama said without much expression. Well, I guess I'll have to do it someday anyway. Nothing happened, a very confused black-haired girl wondered. It seems that this time, I can control it. Even so, I don't think I can master this in a few seconds, so I ask you to take some distance. It's possible that I can hurt you. Of course tilde, answering happily, he took a few steps back. Okay, now should I just give some chakra and cut it? Who knows Gaki, he's trying to do that, it's not like we know what he does anyway. Listening to his companion, he let out a deep sigh and concentrated the chakra on the blade. As he had done on a mission where he remembers that he had traveled back in time and saved a girl along with a kingdom. Unfortunately no one believed what he said, so it remained as a unique anecdote. Opening parenthesis. It was the light whisper he could hear. The blonde was surprised, that was very low, but he could somehow hear the last letter. Hey, Kurama. Did you say something? He asked to check if it was him thinking something out loud or possibly going crazy from hearing voices in his head. I didn't say anything, why the question? Never mind, it must be my imagination, he said in a relaxed manner, but inside he was surprised. You, cut. Again, he asked himself, this time looking around. Not seeing anyone nearby except for the Mao who was somewhat far away, he decided to look at what he had in his hands. You're not the one who spoke, are you? Just hearing the silence, he let out a sigh he didn't know he was holding. Calming his nerves, he was able to concentrate again. Judgment cut. Which didn't last as long as he thought, this time staring at his weapon in hand, it seemed slightly shiny and somehow released a light ray as if to imply that he was the one who spoke. Was all the blonde could say. Judgment cut, the blonde wondered. He had heard the voice again and now it was clearly understandable. What is this judgment cut? He asked again. Maybe a movement, or something like that. Is something wrong, Naruto? Said this time a Mao next to the blonde. Seriously, when and how does it move? Nothing, I just thought I heard something, he answered somewhat nervously. So this would end the attempt. I'd be lying to you and say yes, I still wanted to do one more thing before finishing, so do you think you can focus most of your power this time on trying to keep the barrier firm? No problem, but is it really necessary to do that? I don't know, that's why I'm taking some precautions. Or something similar. With that last thing said, Serafall focused fully on her barrier, while the blonde tried to do something that possibly wouldn't make sense. Since the blonde didn't always go with logic, this time he would try something reckless, hoping that this little experiment would work. Before I do what will possibly take your life, I would really like an explanation about this. And for it to be convincing, Naruto, I don't want to disappear and have to appear somewhere randomly here, said an angry Kurama. Wasn't he supposed to be immortal? Yes, but like everything else, it also has limits and I don't know if what you're trying to do will take you to that limit. So, you shouldn't have told me those limits. Not getting a response from the Biju, he let out an internal sigh and spoke again. I think we'll have a long conversation about that. Calm down, what I'm trying to do isn't life-threatening anyway. I simply wanted to make several random cuts with a light amount of chakra and at high speed. Now how is that supposed to get into your head? Do you even know that that might or might not do anything? No, but if I don't try then I'll never know, and as for how it got into my head, I don't even know myself, saying the last thing in a low voice. Without saying anything else, he cut off the communication with his partner. Staring at the black-haired girl, he noticed that she nodded slightly. This time, slightly prepared, he placed his hand on the hilt, taking a slight deep breath. Come on, it should be possible even for me to be able to do this. I don't need to have years of experience on how to swing the sword at high speed, right? Leaving behind his last thought, the weapon began to release a light glow along with rapidly moving rays. Hearing a light beeping sound as if Yamato was indicating he was ready, he swung the katana as fast as he could while trying to maintain the same amount of chakra in each slash. Doing that in a matter of milliseconds, he put the blade back into its sheath. It seems that the blonde could not finish speaking as residual images of several cuts appeared that seemed to have a glow. Unfortunately, all the cuts ended up in random places, something the blonde did not expect. He thought that all his cuts would go to a single point, not that they would spread everywhere. He was fortunate that none of them hit the barrier. Wow, how did you do that? An astonished Mao asked. Well, did it appear somehow? I don't really know how to explain it, just that, it didn't happen the way I thought it would. He answered somewhat frustrated. He thought he could immediately do whatever came to his head, however what had happened previously made him see the reality. It doesn't matter if you got a new power, you can't master everything without even knowing how it works. That could also apply to his last power acquired in the war. he only had a few hours and didn't even know what he was capable of doing completely. Aside from also figuring out what powers he could use from the Sharingan and Rinnegan, while he did get his friend's eyes, he wasn't sure if he could have also used the full power in a few hours. So, do you want to try again? The black-haired girl asked. I guess a few more tries wouldn't hurt, so I might as well get some basic training on how to use a weapon like this. Kuroka. A few days had already passed after the incident he had with Naruto. Finding out that he was one of the most powerful races and also one of the most influential, if not the only ones. She had been so nervous when she regained consciousness that she didn't know what to do. Nothing more than Dageza, that is, if she was just taking it in a good way and she wanted to keep thinking that she was, and if that wasn't the case, then she would agree to do anything as long as her sister wasn't harmed by her clumsiness. But, as the days went by, the mood got worse. The strangest thing of all was that things were getting relatively better, not by leaps and bounds, but still there were slight improvements in his poor lifestyle. Nei-chan. Ah. Sharon-chan, is something happening? Right. You were spacing out again. Oh, sorry about that. Nya, I was just thinking about some things. I know, for a few days now you've been repeating the same thing. Something's wrong, Nei-chan. The little silver-haired girl asked with clear concern. Letting out a light smile, Kuroka gently rubbed his head and spoke to him. Sometimes you seem like the oldest even though we are several years apart. Nya. So can I have a candy? Nice try. Nya, but not good enough. He replied mockingly. At least I tried, said a defeated Sharon. After a few seconds in which both laughed lightly, the atmosphere became serious and the brunette spoke. Tell me, Sharon, do you think that if someone wants to apologize seriously after having committed a serious fault, could they be forgiven? She asked in her moment of fragility. I guess it depends on the person. He answered, asking a question, pushing his head to the limit. This time you might be right, he said looking at the ground, with a slightly depressed look. So, will I get a candy? The white-haired girl asked again, while her tail moved to both sides. That will depend on the day. Nya. He told her with a slight smile. Forgetting his mood for the moment. With Naruto. Gasp, how did I end up spending half of my chakra on this? Could it be that you used it uncontrollably? What else did you expect to happen? Now are you satisfied for today? If you continue like this for a few more hours, you will end up badly. Okay, I'm done training with this and I think I need a break. And Serafall too, it's surprising that she managed to maintain the barrier. Naruto, why you finished? An exhausted Mao asked. Yes, I'm done with everything. You can now undo the barrier, he answered, somewhat tired. It wasn't enough to say more and the brunette ended up collapsed on the ground. I was expecting this, I guess he can't move, I have no other choice, right? Come on, you caused this and now you have to take responsibility. And maybe. Stop right there, you know I'm not planning that. You'll see when years go by and you regret not having listened to me, Gaki. By the time the time comes, I won't be able to hold back my laughter and you'll have to endure it, he said in a mocking voice. Sure, whatever. Seeing the unconscious Mao on the ground, he carried her up holding her to his chest. Letting out a light sigh, he slowly walked towards the mansion. After all, he was tired too. After a few minutes he came across a few servants, looking at him in surprise when they noticed that he was carrying Serafall in his arms. With the demons that were men he simply earned a confused look and a slight drop on his head. While with the women, some had a slight blush and dreamy look. What were they thinking? The blonde would never know. Near Serafall's room. Almost there, said a somewhat tired blonde. Naruto. Someone asked behind him. Yes, he said without turning around, recognizing the voice and becoming somewhat static. Did something happen? The voice said again when it saw that he was carrying the Mao. No, he was just helping me, he answered as quickly as possible. Calm down, he spoke again cutting off what the blonde was going to say. I didn't think this would happen so soon, he said this time in front of him with his hand resting on his face and with a slight tint of red on his cheeks. The person in front of him was none other than the mother of the Mao he carried in his arms. Getting a slight blush from understanding the situation he was talking about. She tried to say something, but fate didn't seem to be on her side. Naruto, don't go, Serafall said sleepily and in whispers, while she clung to the blonde tightly. Now is not a good time for you to say that, Serafall, she mentally screamed. And to think that your life would become a romantic comedy, commented his companion, holding back his laughter. Now is not the time, shit fox. Who are you calling fox of? Quickly cutting his mental link, he returned to reality to face the current situation. I didn't think it would move so fast, matriarch Citri commented. I suppose I'll have to make some preparations, she asked herself in her own world. Now what do I do? Now what do I do? Now what do I do? Naruto repeated to himself over and over again, unable to find a way out. Excuse me, but said a nervous blonde. Relax, I know this will be your first time and you want privacy. Now I remember that I had something important to do, don't worry about Sona, I'll take her with me. Without being able to say another word, the matriarch left him alone with Serafall in her arms while saying all sorts of random things as she walked away. Not to mention that with all that noise, a brunette girl was waking up. Moving her hand slightly towards her eyes, she could see someone very similar to Naruto in front of her. Serafall said sleepily. Opening her eyes fully and having clear vision, she could see that it was not someone similar, it was the blonde. Looking around, she realized that she was being carried in his arms. He said to himself mentally. How did I get here? Asking himself mentally while he racked every corner of his head to remember what had happened before. Unfortunately, he had no success. Hello, was the only thing he could say in that situation. Hello, a blonde man answered, somewhat nervous and confused. As an awkward silence settled, the blonde spoke again. Are you feeling better? Yeah, I guess so. Well, at least that's one thing I can get off my chest. Oh, did something happen? Well, did I ever tell you that your mom can be a bit hasty? Not that I remember, she said, still being carried in the blonde's arms. In which she had no problem at all. So, I'll tell you now. He said, slightly embarrassed. She was really hasty. He spoke slightly quietly, but loud enough for her to hear. And it's also possible that we should fix a small thing, which isn't a big deal, but it's something. He spoke quickly, not knowing how to say things correctly. Okay, stop saying thing in every sentence. What happened? She asked, more intrigued this time. I don't know how I should say it, but, among everything said, there were some preparations, a sudden overtaking, as well as taking Sona, so that there are no problems and about a first time, he said the last part slightly blushing. What? A blushing Mao asked. Isn't it true that these are meaningless things? He said as he left the Mao on the ground while she stared at him. I think I should solve this before it gets any worse. Speaking nervously, Naruto turned his back about to take the first step forward. Wait, Serafall shouted as she pulled at his sleeve. Why are you stopping me? Don't you want me to fix this? He said without turning to look at her. What if I say no? Yeah, I really wouldn't want you to, he said in a broken voice. I don't understand. Why don't you want me to do it? It's probably something unexpected and without any sense, but, stopping and letting out a light sigh, she looked him straight in the eyes, crossing the blue with the purple where there didn't seem to be anything else important around. She spoke again. But, I don't know how to explain it. Okay. It's complicated for me. I can't understand anything of what I feel. She exclaimed with teary eyes. Why can't I say it? She asked without waiting for any answer as she returned to the ground looking down. The blonde remained silent for a moment, looking at the brunette on the ground. He took a step and placed himself at the same height. Using his right hand he lifted the Mao's chin and spoke to her. Serafall. Staring at the blonde, the Mao blushed, unable to look away. I think I can slightly understand what you mean, or at least that's what I think. Anyway, what do you want? the blonde asked without looking away while the mouth slowly approached with each word said. I, was all Serafall could say as she slowly approached the blonde without even noticing she was doing so. Now, what else did he have to do? The blonde asked himself mentally. I should be cursing you right now, but as always, you have to be an idiot at critical moments. Understand? Do what you should have done a few seconds ago, give him a kiss. And that's it. You even gave it to the Uchiha, I don't see the difference now. You should know that wasn't what I had planned. So, you got so close because. It's because I was trying to see what was so special about Sasuke at that time. While the blonde continued to fight with his partner, the brunette took advantage of the opportunity to get even closer, joining her lips with the blonde's. An action that brought Naruto back to reality. Somewhere. Kan Azazel. Saihem. This place looks familiar to me, the fallen angel said while looking at the buildings around. It would be good if you would announce your intentions here, Lord Leader of the Fallen Angels, a woman said behind him. Oh tilde, and to think that I would find you so easily. Tell me, how is everything going? He asked without turning to look at the woman. What happens in this territory is none of your business. Oh, don't be like that with me, Yasaka, he said with a smile to the QB in front of him. Stop talking to me like that, you know I don't like you. He said sharply with a serious look. Ouch, and I thought we were friends, he replied mockingly. So, are you going to tell me what you're looking for? Who knows? Maybe some fun, or just a little relaxation, he said in a doubtful voice. Will you stop playing games and tell me what you want? She asked even more seriously, looking threatening. Looks like someone is short on patience, or maybe, is something wrong tilde, she answered, still mocking the questions being asked of her. The yokai, unable to hold back any longer, began to concentrate her chakra to attack the fallen angel. Hey, calm down, he said this time more seriously. There is no need to resort to violence, at least not this time. Are you going to answer yes or no? You sure are stubborn, but that's it. It's not like I have a secret plan or anything right now, he said looking at the sky. That. Nothing, just my own stuff. He answered, letting out a light sigh. Now, since you want to know so much, why am I here? Well, it can be summed up in one word. And that would be it. Luck, no, I guess you could say it was random. Although, doesn't it seem like it's the same word? Well, it doesn't matter, I never imagined I'd end up here, if it were like that. I would have looked for a good restaurant or ramen stand, I've recently developed a certain liking for that food, you know. I don't care what you like, but since you didn't want to come to this place, go away. Why do you want me to leave so quickly? He asked into the void. Could it be that, leaving a deadly silence he spoke again. Did the little war you have between you get worse? Saying that, the kitsune in his presence was slightly startled, letting an aura of hostility be felt by the fallen angel. Hey so I got it right on the first try okay, I'll be leaving, I don't want to cause any more trouble, I have more interesting things to do. He said while showing his wings. Oh, one thing before I go. He spoke unexpectedly surprising the kitsune. Be careful who you trust, this is advice you probably already know, but it never hurts to remember it. Without saying anything else, he flew away from the place, leaving a lonely Yasaka. I already know that, he whispered as he returned to his previous destination. He had detoured after sensing the leader of the fallen, so now he could return home without any problem. I hope father is okay, she let out a whisper that only she could hear while the wind carried those words. Unknown place. Humming, it was the only thing that could be heard in the lonely place that seemed to be some kind of cave. In the place was what appeared to be a little girl wearing a set of dark clothes. If anyone was wondering how that could be defined, it was the image of a gothic loli. You guys. This is hard to do, the girl said. How can other races do this? She asked into space with a blank expression. Excuse me, Office-sama, a random soldier said. What do you want? She asked directly, giving him a blank look that seemed to make the soldier in front of her nervous. Why, you see, There is news about a great demonic power that could be felt throughout the underworld. Apparently many spies said with their own word that it could be Lucifer. The one with red hair. No, the one who had rebelled against the God of the Catholic religion. Strange, she said without looking at him. Is that all? Yeah. Then, get lost. Without turning around, he slightly raised the power he had and the soldier left as quickly as possible. Could it be you, Uzumaki? He asked no one as the corner of his lip rose slightly. Back with Naruto. Was the only thing he thought when he was kissed by the Mao. Parting slightly to get some air, both the blonde and the brunette were blushing. Why you, the blonde stammered. Taking a breath he spoke again. You really did it. Yes, she said blushing, playing with her fingers. Too, I didn't know how to say what I felt in another way. I said it before, right? This is the first time I feel something like that. Not that I remember. Hey, I said that before. She shouted somewhat annoyed with a blush on her face. Then, I guess I'll take it, he said with a slight smile. He gently took the Mao's head and placed it on his chest. Giving her a light hug, surprising the brunette with his sudden approach. Leaving a comfortable silence where Serafall curled up lightly on the blonde, resting her jaw on the blonde's chest, raising her gaze staring at him with the blush still on her cheeks and said. By the way, can I ask a question? Of course. Was this your first kiss? As she asked the question, her blush became more intense, but she still didn't take her eyes off the blonde. How did you manage to get to this point? And also, how will you be able to get out of that question without it becoming awkward? I wish I knew that. Why yes, he answered without being able to look at her directly. Being in a completely new state for the Mao, she didn't take into account how the blonde had spoken and simply lowered her head again, returning to the previous hug they had. Twos. That was what they heard behind them. Turning their heads slightly, they could see one of the butlers who seemed to be cheerful in some way. Excuse the interruption, but Leviathan Sama's presence has been requested in the dining room. May I know who requires my presence? She asked, somewhat annoyed. It's Lady Citri, Leviathan Sama. She told me that she needed to talk to you about something important. She said the last thing with a complicated face. Sure, I'll go immediately. Saved, the blonde mentally screamed. He had no problem trying something with the Mao, but he couldn't stop thinking in his head that she was possibly rushing things between them. Still, he believed he had no reason to refuse. He loved Serafall in some way, now he could see if that was love or just friendship. Hey, Gaki, don't you think that was pretty timely? Of course, but right now I'm grateful for that sudden appearance. Well, I guess I'll be leaving too, today was a long day, the blonde said slowly as he looked at the butler in front of him. The butler gave a slight bow and headed in the opposite direction from the blonde. Naruto's room. Sigh okay, today wasn't a great day. In fact I feel a bit tired, it's been a long time since I felt like this. Although, considering that the war was, not long ago, for me, I don't know if the expression is well used. Wandering a bit with his words, the blonde continued walking until he sat on his bed. Okay, now will you tell me why you suddenly got that idea about wanting to make those cuts so much? No problem, but I find it strange that you couldn't see it. See what? The memory I saw. Just because I'm connected to you doesn't mean I'll be able to see all your memories or things that happen in your head. The example of that is when the old man showed up, I couldn't find out everything until after you told me. So you don't read my mind whenever you want. I could, but I won't do it without your permission. Or until I feel like it, he commented without interest. That sounds disturbing. Well, I guess that's something one can pay for having a Biju as a partner, he said with a shiver. Now, we have to talk about that, immortality. Okay, I had to tell you anyway. Stretching slightly and getting back into a comfortable position, the Biju began to speak. You see, your immortality isn't completely complete, so to speak. You could die if I'm extracted from you, you could also die from war wounds. Although I see that as unlikely, you'd have to be left without a single drop of chakra just like me, causing you to not regenerate. Besides, right now you're fragile. What do you mean by that? the blonde asked, not understanding in what sense he wanted to apply that. Your body is fragile right now, maybe not in your mindscape where you could use all your power without affecting your physical body at all. But, if you do it outside of your mind, you know where I'm going, right? Oh, great, how am I supposed to survive attacks from potential enemies if I can't use my own strength? You have two things, using senjutsu that somehow helped your body recover at a good pace. I'm sure you didn't notice it, he said with a lost look. He knew the blonde didn't see him since they weren't talking inside his mind, but he wouldn't stop doing it even if nobody sees him. Of course I noticed. Plus, now I understand why I felt so much better using it. So does that mean I should use it all day long? No, even if that helps you. The other thing you have to do is strengthen your body the traditional way without using senjutsu, at least not for now, since it seems that it also acts differently around here. Or maybe it's like that because it's the underworld. Once you get out of here, try to see how it goes with senjutsu in the human world. Was that the name I should give them? He questioned himself, not knowing exactly what the place should be called. Okay, don't overuse senjutsu. I just hope I don't have to fight the bad feelings again. They are strong in some way. And a few exercises like Lee did could help. As he said the last thing, a sparkle appeared in his eyes. No, you can't. How can you flatly deny it without even having heard what I was going to say? Because, I know what you're going to ask. No matter how much you want to learn the inner doors, you won't be able to because I don't know how to learn that, much less you. Sigh, there goes a surprise for the enemies, although, if I remember correctly, the techniques were not very favorable towards their users. Thinking about the pros and cons of the 8 doors, he possibly doesn't want to learn them. I think that's enough of thinking. I need a shower and rest. Without saying anything else, he did as he was told and ended up lying down on the bed, wanting to have a moment of rest on it. Several days later. Are you sure you want to do this? Serafall asked, looking at the blonde in front of her. Yes, it's something I have to do, he answered, looking into her eyes. After the little event between them, they were able to talk much more freely. Don't you want to stay with me? With sad eyes, the Mao couldn't help but ask when she saw Naruto with great dedication wanting to leave. It's not that, he answered instantly after being asked. Although not much happened in the days that passed, he was able to get to know the brunette even better, and so far, if everything went well for him, he would try to do something serious with her. I would like to continue with you, but I don't feel comfortable in the underworld, to be honest. So you want to leave because you don't like the place? No, well, a little maybe, but that's not the main reason. What is the reason then? I asked this time, curious. Will you tell him that you don't feel very comfortable being without anything to do for so long? That's what I plan, but it's also important that I get out of here so I can find somewhere where I can train without getting Serafall into trouble. I don't think someone won't start to question why there are several holes around the place. You have a point, but I don't think there would be a problem if you went somewhere far away from where all the demons are. Assuming that they are the only ones living here. So will you tell me the reason for wanting to leave? I was thinking about wanting to explore the human world. It doesn't feel good to be in an unknown place and be without any information. My sensei taught me not to remain ignorant in any places I was in. Naruto said with a small smile. He was telling the truth without giving the full reasons. So he wasn't lying at all, something he wasn't good at. Also, I got curious about what Rias showed me. If I remember correctly, that thing called anime was in a place called Japan. I thought I'd look into that place a bit. Also, it seems that's where ninjas came from, or at least that's what she told me. Sigh, okay, if you look at it from your point of view, I wouldn't feel comfortable in an unknown place without knowing anything. But, leaving that aside, why do you always try to make a cross cut with the katana you have? That's so I can do something I learned with Yamato. It's similar to the portals they use. So you can travel with that. Yes, that way I can also come and visit the underworld at any time. Doesn't that sound good? I think so. Do you know when you're leaving? I had planned to talk to someone before I left, so I don't have a specific date to leave. Naruto answered while lightly holding his chin. Why do you need to talk to someone? Is it Searsex-chan? The black-haired girl asked very curiously. No, it's not Searsex. He's someone who might need help, and I don't think I can just leave things like this, she said with concern in her voice. Sigh. Okay, it's not like I'm going to refuse or anything. If you're going to help, then do it. After all, you're acting just like who you are by doing that, right? He finished with a smile. Okay, I'll go see them. See you later. Kuroka. Why did this happen? The brunette wondered when she saw her little sister. She was sick, but she didn't know what it was. She had a high fever and said she was cold. Also, her chakra flow was acting strange. It was out of control somehow. She had never experienced anything like that. Maybe mom was here, she thought. Her mother would probably have the chance to know what was happening to her. Maybe something to lower the fever will help for now, she said resignedly, not understanding what she could do to help. As she headed to the kitchen for some water and some cloths, someone was knocking on her door, making her sigh as she wasn't expecting a visitor at an inopportune time. I don't care who it will be, my priority is Sharon-chan, he said mentally, leaving the person who was waiting at his door. A few minutes passed, having placed the cloths on her sister and making her cool, so that her body heat wouldn't be so bothersome was the only thing she could do for her at that moment, and she hoped to find a way for her to get better. Leaving the silver-haired girl alone for a few moments, she walked slowly to the door hoping that whoever was visiting her had left so she could focus completely on her sister. Opening the door slightly as she looked through the crack, she saw the blonde she had planned to apologize to. Shit, was the only thing he thought. Now he had not only disrespected him once, but he had done it again by keeping him waiting outside. This is probably worse than last time, but if I receive any punishment it won't matter since my Sharon-chan comes before everything else, he thought with conviction. Naruto said as he saw the Nekomata staring at him with conviction in her eyes. Hello, would you allow me to come in for a moment? He asked kindly. He had sensed that both sisters were there, but one of them had her chakra out of control, making him remember when Orochimaru placed a seal on the one he already had in his stomach. Sure. Go ahead. Nya, Kuroka replied nervously. Taking a few minutes to settle in and talk in relative calm, the blonde stared at the Nekomata thoughtfully. Kuroka, he said firmly and without hesitation. Why yes, she answered with clear nervousness upon hearing the blonde speak. He couldn't finish speaking when he saw that the brunette was practically lying on the ground. What are you supposed to do? He asked, very confused when he saw her like that. He hadn't done anything to him for her to do a dageza, making him remember that he did the same with the rakeage, making him sweat drop. Am I asking for forgiveness? Nya, he said with what seemed to be more of a question than a confirmation. I know that, I mean why you do it. I don't remember you doing anything to me, he said the last thing to himself as a whisper, but the Nekomata heard it anyway. So you're not upset about the offenses I made? He asked, not noticing that I didn't use the tick he had when speaking. Kurama, why is she acting so strange? And you think I know that? There was no response from the blonde after that interaction. Okay, I don't know what you're apologizing for, but if it makes you feel better, I'll forgive you for whatever you did, he said, very confused. Thank you. Nya. She answered this time more happily. Okay, back to what I was saying before. I have a proposal, which you probably want to accept, but since I don't know what your answer would be, I decided to ask before I act. Oh, she said curiously while her tail unintentionally moved slightly from side to side. What's the proposal? Nya. Would you like to leave the underworld? Nya, was the only thing that came out of Kuroka's mouth. Leave the underworld? Yeah. How? She asked again, not believing what she heard. Can we get out of here? She said hopefully. Author's note: I can't tell if Kuroka had extensive experience in magic at that time. So let's just say that she only knows more about the chakra that yokai use, than the magic that most characters use. Anyway, she will learn it later and she will know everything she should like in the canon. Yes, that's why I wanted to ask if you wanted to come with me. Seeing as you're the only yokai in the underworld, or so I thought you might like to return to your homeland, he said with a smile. So what do you say? Of course Nya, she exclaimed happily. The Nekomata had nothing but her sister, she was the only thing that tied her to the underworld. If she had discovered how to get out earlier, she would have done so with her sister. She had never liked being surrounded by demons who might have forcibly recruited her into someone's nobility, nor did she know how they ended up in the underworld. When she was born she was in the human world for a few years, but somehow her mother took her to the underworld, and her mother never mentioned to them the reason for her stay. That was a very big question for her. She had never asked him before since she didn't have problems like the ones she had to face when her mother died and she had to take responsibility for her little sister. However, now she could leave with her sister from the place where she had to be on alert almost all day long. She disguised herself as a yokai as best she could, but luck could not always be on her side. Really? Naruto asked, somewhat surprised. He didn't expect her to accept so immediately and happily. Yeah. Okay, since this is settled, there is one more thing I would like to know, of course if it is not too much trouble, Naruto said staring at the brunette. Okay Nya, ask whatever you want, he exclaimed happily. Why does Sharon's chakra act that way? He asked seriously. Taking a few seconds, the Nekomata sighed and spoke. You noticed huh? She replied dejectedly. If she knew the reason then, she could think of something to help her. Does that mean you don't know what's going on with her? Silence was the Nekomata's only response. Sigh, I wouldn't like to go around showing off all my powers, but I can't allow myself to leave her like this. Hey, Kurama. Do you have a solution for what Sharon has? I don't have a direct answer, it's strange how her chakra fluctuates. You could try using a little senjutsu. But for a girl that small and without knowing anything about this energy, it's almost like killing her. Isn't there a less risky solution? There is also the option of using my chakra. I remain silent as I say the last thing, hoping that Naruto will notice what I meant. I think we both know the possible result of that. You are much stronger than before and the intensity of the first layer of chakra you have now is almost as corrosive as when you used the cloak with the four tails. He spoke slightly distressed. Although, if you really want to help that girl, I could help you use the first phase of the cloak you obtained by doing the tug of war, that should be enough. As long as you use it and have contact with the girl, I can solve her problem. But are you willing to do it for some strangers? You know perfectly well that the ninja world was not pink. What makes you think that this world could not be too? He said seriously. What makes you think that they could not betray you? I don't know, and that's why I'm going to make a bet. He answered with the same seriousness. Leaving a moment of silence between them. I'll bet that I can trust these two, after all they are going to be my traveling companions until I find the yokai. I can't always lie to my friends and comrades. She said without hesitating in any word. Sigh, it can't be helped. You're still the reincarnation of the Ashura idealist. And before doing anything, once this is done you'll have to leave the place as soon as possible. The demons can't fully sense the energy you have for some reason, but the pressure you would generate can be easily felt. Relax, this time I can use my full speed even after using the chakra cloak. You know it yourself. Hello Nya, Kuroka asked when she saw Naruto staring into space. After a few seconds the blonde reacted, this time he had a determined look. He locked eyes with the brunette and spoke. I might be able to help with whatever Sharon has. But, do you trust me? I don't know, was the only thing she could say at that moment. Leaving a slightly awkward silence. It's true that I barely know you, we've only managed to talk a few times like now, she continued speaking while lightly squeezing both of her hands. But, there's something that tells me that, I can trust you at least enough to go with you and get out of the underworld, she said as she raised her gaze and focused on Naruto. Also, if it's to be able to heal my little sister, I'll fully trust you just this once. Without taking her gaze off the blonde she continued speaking. That's why I ask you. Please help my sister, she finished saying with light drops on the edges of her eyes. It's clear that he really loves his sister. Is this what a real family can do? He asked himself without knowing the answer. Okay, just trust me this time, I promise I'll fix this. He said with a smile. And I never break a promise. He finished seriously. After having the little dialogue between the two and having reached a bond, where they could at least have enough trust to slightly believe in each other. The Nekomata guided the blonde to the only available room in the entire house. Okay, this is so strange. If only Grandma was here, she could surely fix this easily. The blonde thought sincerely. He could never understand how to use the medical jutsu even if he had been able to create a new eye for his sensei. He couldn't explain how he could do it. It was more of an involuntary action than anything else. He regretted right now not having learned at least some medical jutsu. How are you going to be able to heal her? He asked his tenant. I can't give you a concrete answer right now, and if I did, you probably wouldn't understand me. Understand? Anyway, leave it to me. I was the one who helped in your regeneration since you were little anyway. And I suppose you haven't forgotten that I'm a chakra entity, right? Who would be more qualified than me to fix chakra? True, you have a point there, he said simply. He had forgotten that he was a chakra entity with consciousness or whatever his friend was. He didn't pay much attention to the details the old man gave him when he heard the story about the Jubi and how he ended up creating the Biju. Is Sharon-chan really going to get better? The older Nekomata next to the blonde asked. There was concern in his gaze every time he spoke to his sister, something that the blonde noticed very easily. Giving him a slight nod, the blonde spoke again. I'm just asking you not to get upset once I do this. But, before we start, don't you want to pack some things? We'll leave once I'm done with Sharon, he said, staring at her. So fast _nya. Whatever I do here is likely to alert several people, so we shouldn't hang around the place once it's done, so I'd prefer if you had everything in order once we leave. He replied while scratching his head slightly. Okay _nya. I'll have everything ready. After the exclamation, the brunette ran out of the room, preparing everything that seemed important to her. You can take whatever you want, I have something that can help with that. The blonde said loud enough for Kuroka to hear. Okay _nya. I just hope he doesn't plan on taking the whole house. Did I do the right thing by telling him that last thing? 15 minutes later. Ready, all packed _nya, he exclaimed with his tail slightly moving to the sides. Naruto didn't know what kept her so happy and active. He was sure that happiness could be from leaving the underworld, but what made her so energetic? He would never know the answer. Okay, I'm going to start. You're not going to get upset, are you? No, I said it before, right? Okay, since we might not have much time after I do this, I asked you to fix the things you had. Is everything okay? Yes, I have everything I need, but you'll have to tell me what you've done after you're done _nya. He said in a serious voice. Made. As soon as he finished speaking, the blonde found himself surrounded by a layer of golden energy unknown to the Nekomata, who looked in amazement at the great concentration of chakra that the blonde exerted. It was at that moment that she understood what Naruto had said a few seconds ago. He saw his hand heading towards his sister's stomach. Just a light touch was enough, and a small, light layer appeared on it. The gold surrounded his sister at times. It blinked constantly, and he could feel how somehow his little sister was calming down little by little and her chakra was regulating. She was not a great sensor, she had barely developed that ability, but if even so, she could feel it easily, then the blonde must be using a considerable amount of chakra. Okay, I think it's solved now, the blonde said after only a few seconds. Already? That was all _nya, she asked, clearly dismayed. Yes, we don't have much time for me to explain how this works. So we have to go now. He answered quickly. He had sensed a few presences coming to his location, so he would rather not have any problems. He walked over to Kuroka's luggage, and saw how it was literally everything she had in her house stacked on top of each other. When I said it didn't matter how much you carried, I didn't mean you would carry your entire house. Why did I feel like this was going to happen? Anyway, it's no problem. After a little training in Fuinjutsu this is easy. So it's not possible _nya? She asked with teary eyes, staring at the blonde, trying to make him fall into her gaze. Sigh, I didn't mean that, but you shouldn't do that all the time. Besides, why are you making that look? Is something wrong? He answered and questioned, not being minimally affected by the eyes Kuroka made. The Nekomata was about to speak, but the blonde cut her off by raising his hand while his mouth was open. It doesn't matter, there's no time right now. After finishing speaking, he made Kuroka pout. Placing one of his hands on the entire pile of things he spoke again. Fuin, he exclaimed as a light cloud of smoke appeared. Looking at the small mark on his wrist, he turned his gaze to the brunette. Okay, let's go, take Sharon. Without saying a word out of surprise at seeing all his things disappear using a method he had never seen before in his life, he went straight to his sister and carried her in his arms. Now what N? She didn't finish speaking as the blonde carried her princess style, making her blush slightly, not expecting at all what he just did. What did you, without letting her speak again? He ran out the door and went as fast as he could, hoping that he hadn't used too much time talking. He didn't want to get into trouble now. Sea Tree Mansion. We're finally here, Naruto said, slightly tired. Although he could use at least the first layer of chakra that Kurama gave him, leaving the place in a hurry would still tire him out. He still hadn't reached the maximum level of his physique and his stamina had dropped alarmingly, but it wasn't that bad anymore. And now he could say that he had slightly more stamina than when he was 12 years old. It wasn't bad, but it was clear that it was far from everything he had achieved when they were at war. Still, he didn't worry too much. If it only took a little training to regain his original stamina, then he would just have to give it his all in the near future and he would be able to get back to a good state, before he could reach the full power he could wield. Nya was the only thing Kuroka could say as she felt very dizzy. She hadn't thought that Naruto could move so fast. He tried to stand up, but it was impossible, to say the least. He didn't even know if he was moving the leg he wanted to control. I don't know if it's just me or the bodies of the people here are very fragile, the blonde asked himself. Kuroka was the second person who had gotten so dizzy when traveling with him. Something that surprised him since the sisters who lived in the mansion were not fazed at all and even seemed to enjoy the view. How can you go so fast? Kuroka asked, still trying to stand up and with her eyes that seemed to go in different directions without being able to fully focus. It was certain that the Nekomata would need some time to come back to her senses. It's because they're not used to it gaki, but the fact that the younger dwarf doesn't flinch is interesting. With the green-haired Mao, it's simple, he was weak when you took him. Don't you remember? It's true. Well, that's not important now, we'll talk about that later. As he watched the black-haired girl struggle to get up, he turned his attention to the little silver-haired girl. Right now she didn't look like she had been sick a few minutes ago. Even after recovering, I can't understand what had to happen for her chakra to become like that. Who knows, but seeing that reminded me of when you tried to control Senjutsu. At the beginning it got out of control in large quantities and the old toad hit you with a stick. Without a doubt a good memory for me. Hey, what do you mean by that? Nothing important. Now you should see what's happening to that cat in front of you. She was talking to you a few moments ago. Why are you standing so still in that spot? Nya, the Nekomata asked him again for the third time, while slightly moving the blonde's shoulder. Having reacted thanks to the Biju, Naruto was able to respond with what he believed to be the most credible answer. Oh, it's nothing, I was just thinking about where we could appear. You don't know where we'll be going out? Nya, she asked, clearly intrigued. Unfortunately not. Even if I would like to do that, I still don't have a good control over the exact location where I want to appear. How can you not know where to appear with the magic circles? Nya. It's true, I never told him how we were going to travel, the blonde said to himself, wanting to hit himself on the head. It's not that, what we're going to use isn't a magic circle, it's a special object, so to speak. I couldn't get all of its potential since I'm still learning how to use it correctly, but don't worry, I'm sure we'll turn out well. Probably, she said, finishing with a smile. While internally she had a drop in her head. Nya, an object you say? I never thought there would be things like that. Nya, she commented. She was still a novice in the supernatural world after all. The only thing she had the most knowledge about was what was related to the yokai, and that was because her mother had taught her. Yes, you'll see him in a few moments, but first I have to leave certain things. I can't leave without doing that first. Why don't you rest here for a moment? Maybe Sharon will get up before I arrive. When that happens you can explain to her what's going to happen, okay? No problem nya, I was thinking of asking for a moment to see if Sharon-chan can get up and talk to her first nya. He said as he sat down next to his sister and began to caress her head. Well, see you in a moment. That was all he said before immediately disappearing from the Nekomata's sight. I wonder if I'm doing the right thing by following him, the brunette thought as she looked at her little sister with a smile. No, that doesn't matter now, all I need is Sharon-chan's happiness, he whispered so low that if the silver-haired girl had been awake she wouldn't have been able to hear. With Naruto. Now, how do I say goodbye to Rias? She hadn't been good at saying goodbye, and even worse with children. Konohamaru was proof of that. He simply told her that he would be leaving for a while, but he didn't say anything else. He knew he couldn't act the same way with the little redhead, even though he only got to spend a few moments with the girl, he had had some fun with her. It was nice not to have to deal with anything that was power, more power and power, other than power and power. Do I include power yet? The little girl was what he would have liked to have as a friend when he was little, someone happy, energetic and without any hint of discomfort or mockery in her eyes. I think I know what could work, he said to himself. Without taking into account that someone was coming behind him, he felt a weight on his back and as if someone was holding on to him. Feeling a slight surprise, he turned his head and saw the Mel looking at him with a smile while hugging him. I like receiving this kind of affection, but why so sudden? He asked while placing his hands where the brunette's legs were to provide support. After all, a hug was always well received by him. I'm trying to keep your presence since I might not see you for a while, just, let me be like this for a moment, please, she asked as she snuggled even closer to him and seemed to not want to separate. It's okay, was all he said as they fell silent. Entering a comfortable moment for both of them, neither of them wanted to talk, they just felt like they had to be like this, reflecting the affection they had for each other with a simple action. Kuroka. H. was the only thing that could be heard where the Nekomata was right now, her sister had finally woken up after several hours of sleeping. Sharon-chan, calm down, I'm next to you nya. He said as he lay down next to his sister. Nei-chan, having said that, she slowly opened her eyes to adjust to the change in light in her environment. After opening her eyes fully, she could see that she was standing on the grass of some kind of land unknown to her, making it look like they were clearly not near home. The few times she was able to look outside her house, she was never able to visualize any land like that. Besides, she was feeling very tired a few minutes ago and she didn't think her sister would take her anywhere in that state. Nei-chan, where are we? He asked as he managed to sit up and at the same time rubbed his eyes so he could look at her steadily. I'd like to know that nya, but there's no need to be alarmed, we're safe in this place, I was just taking a break after being slightly affected by the movement. Are you feeling better than before nya? He asked her with concern. Yes, I feel better than ever, it's like I have more energy. Why do I feel that Nei-chan? Maybe, because of the method they used to heal you nya. He answered with a smile. It's probably temporary, anyway, I'd rather see you with energy than exhausted nya. When he finished speaking, he gave his little sister a big hug. I don't know what I would do if I lost you Sharon-chan. You're the only thing I have, he whispered with a few tears threatening to come out while he tightened the hug he gave the silver-haired girl a little more. Nei-chan, stop. I can't breathe, she tried to say with all the strength she could while moving her arms to free herself from the hellish grip her sister had placed her in. Sorry nya, he said while letting her breathe. It seems that everything is fine, it's good to see you awake again Sharon, a blonde known to both of them spoke, appearing out of nowhere while maintaining his vision with both sisters. Hearing that there was someone near them, they jumped slightly, causing their yokai features to show on both their ears and tails. You shouldn't do that nya, exclaimed a surprised Kuroka. Along with her sister who simply nodded. Getting a slight smile from the blonde, he stepped aside to reveal a girl who was hiding behind the blonde. Hi, said the brunette next to the blonde. Who is she nya, Kuroka asked. As she looked at the new person, getting eyes with clear confusion and doubt. While she sighed internally, seeing that they could no longer go unnoticed as some normal demons since their features were revealed in a way that was not pleasant for them. I thought you would never ask that, so let me introduce her. The blonde spoke before being abruptly interrupted when he saw that the brunette next to him covered her lips with one of her hands. I can introduce myself, she said with a pout. Cough cough, I am the GR. Excuse me, but she's my older sister, said a little girl who was on the other side of the blonde. My name is Sona, it's a pleasure to meet you. With a slight nod of her head she finished her introduction, leaving her sister with the words in her mouth. The girl in front of you, as I said before, is my older sister Serafall. Where do so many people come from? Nya, the yokai wondered. I don't remember Sona being near us. Maybe. Did she arrive shortly after we spoke? The blonde also wondered at the same time. Your assumption is correct, she arrived almost at the moment you started talking. Although, I'm surprised you managed to catch the two yokai off guard. If I remember correctly, they are some kind of cat, shouldn't they have been alert when they heard the footsteps? Well, it could be that they were so focused on their reunion that they didn't notice. Besides, I had told him that this place is safe, so they must have been off guard. By the way, why are you interested in that? Just taking notes, when the time comes, you'll see it was a good decision. Shrugging his shoulders slightly, he let whatever his partner was doing pass. If he said it would be good for him, then he wouldn't argue with him. Nice to meet you both, my name is Kuroka and this is my younger sister Sharon-chan Nya. She introduced both of them, while wondering why Sona was introducing herself again. They had met before and it was strange for her to do the same thing again. Maybe, your sister shouldn't know about the meeting, she asked herself. Since we all introduced ourselves, I think it's time to go. It's so strange to introduce yourself and leave at the same time, said the blonde. The two female yokai nodded at what the blonde said, while hiding their features, slightly angry at the blonde for doing that to them. I hope you have a good trip, Serafall said as she said goodbye with a complicated face, knowing that they had just introduced themselves. Same from me, I hope we can get to know each other better sometime. Nya. The black-haired Nekomata said goodbye with a cheerful attitude. The blonde approached Sona while lightly rubbing her head, causing slight irritation in her. She was not a fan of having her hair that had just been fixed messed up. I hope you can grow up without problems, although having a sister like yours, I don't think the problems will be caused by enemies. Hey, Serafall exclaimed. Bringing a slight smile to both of them, the blonde spoke again. Also, I hope you manage to get a good peerage, you know my answer to that, so I can only wish you the best. He finished with a smile as he extended his hand. He dropped an object that looked like some kind of jewel, something he didn't expect from the blonde at all. Our time was short, but I still had fun with you. I consider that in this period we have become friends, so accept this small gift. It is a replica of an important object. I hope you manage to achieve your goals while you have this. He stood up and walked away from the brunette, while she gave him a determined look. I'm not very good at saying goodbye, but I don't think this will be for long, he said while looking at Serafall. We'll see each other again soon. I might be able to find a way to contact you. Until then, wait for some news about me, okay? He finished speaking while giving her a strong hug that was also reciprocated by the Mao. Okay, can you hurry up and finish this? It's easier for you to open the portal while there's a tear. If you continue like this it will take you longer to get out of here, the Biju commented, somewhat irritated. He was not one to say goodbye either. Relax, I'm done. After all, I don't know if this is a good way to say goodbye. Now, where did you say that tear was? It took only a few seconds for the blonde to remember where the dimensional tear was. Its inhabitant had been able to feel the slight fluctuations of the worlds, and having learned to feel it, the blonde had an easier time opening the portals. Since he didn't do the entire process of the connections, he only used what was already there and opened them with Yamato. That was the reason he could travel, but the downside to that was that he could end up somewhere random. He had done some light testing by partially inserting his body and ended up in strange places he never saw. Materializing Yamato in his left hand, he set off towards the point indicated by his companion. While I'm doing this, it would be good if you would move away a little. A few meters will be enough, he said without turning to look at them. By making a cross-shaped cut he was able to almost immediately open what was a type of portal, causing those present to be amazed at how he could create one with a sword. Okay, this is the time. Let's go. He spoke to the two yokai present. Both sisters were a little nervous when they saw the strange portal, even more so the eldest. She never thought that a portal could look so scary, but she let that feeling pass and gathered courage to advance with her sister. Author's note: the type of portal that appears is the same one that Virgil makes in DMC5. Let's go in at the same time. I don't know if this can be closed if someone goes in first, he said, standing next to Kuroka. This is safe, right? Nya. Sure, no problem, I think. I never tried it with 3 people at once, he responded calmly to the nervous brunette. Let's go in on the count of 3. 1. Of the TR. Before he could speak, the blonde advanced with both sisters while pulling them with him. Do you think they'll be okay? Sona asked. I don't know, but I don't think anything dangerous will happen. The worst that could happen would be that they appear in some kind of civil war or something like that. The Mao answered, making Sona sweat drop. That was very explicit, he thought with his eyes rolled back. Kyoto. One of the best places to visit in Japan was Kyoto, either for its historical antiquity, for the monuments there, or simply to learn about the fictional stories there, about the supernatural creatures. Beings that humans ended up calling yokai. These yokai were supposed to be spirits that could help or harm the people they met. They all had different characteristics from each other, some being more powerful than others, some more hated or loved. But they always remained as stories, simple stories told to tourists and among people who were native to their country, with the simple aim of increasing their cultural value. For years no one knew for sure if everything that was said was true, since all the things done by the yokai were too fanciful for most. What they would never know is that they were always around people, being simple spectators in the lives of humans, and very active in their own world. Unfortunately, things were not exactly rosy for the yokai at this time. Father, said a blonde-haired girl who had several tails behind her that made a slight movement. She had her father in front of her, who was lying on a large bed located in the middle of the room where she was currently. Yasaka, it's good to see you again, he said while keeping his eyes open as best he could. And he tried to lean on the back of the bed. I may not have as much time as I expected, so, he couldn't speak properly as he started coughing, causing blood to come out in significant quantities. Don't overexert yourself, father. As he spoke, he helped his father to lean on him. You know that after the fight you ended up with serious injuries, he said while trying to keep his tears from running down his cheeks when he saw his only living family in such a critical state. I know, but if I don't recover soon, things could get worse. Our brothers need me to be in my best condition to be able to cope with this setback. As he continued speaking, he grabbed his daughter's hand to give it a light squeeze. Besides, I don't have a grandson yet. I don't want to leave without at least knowing that I'll have one, she said while looking at her daughter with her eyes that looked like stars. This action caused Yasaka to blush. Father, this is not the time to say that. She freed her hand from her father's grip to lightly hit him on the head. With all the wounds on her body, any blow could do considerable damage to the grown man in front of her. Ah, don't do that, don't you see that I'm hurt? She claimed with tearful eyes. Serves you right, was all he said as he looked away. Sigh. Okay, sorry, I thought this might lighten the mood, you know I don't like things to be so gloomy. I'm surprised they still made him leader, Yasaka whispered low enough so they couldn't hear her. What are you saying? His father asked, sensing that he had spoken. Nothing. I didn't say anything, you must be hallucinating from all the injuries you have. In fact, why don't you rest while I try to help the others recover? Without waiting for his father to say a word, he quickly laid his father down, causing light drops to appear around his eyes. He left the room and let out a sigh. Why do things have to happen this way? He asked himself sadly, knowing that there were rebels among his ranks. Everything happened so fast and she would not know exactly when it started, since before reaching the point where she was now, several cases of murders and disappearances had been reported. He would never have thought that everything that happened was the basis for attempting a rebellion against his father. Yasaka-sama, the rebels are preparing another large-scale attack. There are around 3,000 enemies reported on all sides, said a servant who appeared out of nowhere while crouching awaiting orders. 3,000 in each, how did they end up surrounding us? She asked calmly on the outside. While inside she was nervous, she knew she had several soldiers to help her. Apart from that they had quality along with that, but if the attack was so sudden after they had made their attack a little while ago, there was not enough preparation to prevent this and much less the available troops to be able to retain them all. That has not been known, Yasaka-sama. The sentinels said that they appeared out of nowhere and seemed to be almost ready to attack. How long ago was the message sent? Approximately 3 minutes, Yasaka-sama. Maybe there is a way to do this, he said while racking his brains as much as he could. He was at a disadvantage, there were too many of them and most of his soldiers were recovering. Let's go to the meeting room at once, we have to do everything we can to stop their advances. Has the commander already gone? The first person to be notified was the commander, Yasaka-sama. They are waiting for her for the meeting, but we could only notify her now because we did not want to interrupt the meeting she had with Arata-sama. Okay. That doesn't matter now, we have to go at once. As soon as he finished speaking, he prepared a teleportation circle and left the place, leaving his father under the protection of the guards who watched over his chambers. Meeting room. This is unsustainable, said a man who kept pacing around the meeting room. Sir, Yasaka-sama has arrived. And why are you making her wait? Let her in at once, he replied, annoyed as he saw his subordinates wasting the little time they had in their hands for action. While waiting for Yasaka to enter the room, he began to come up with a plan that could at least serve to keep their casualties as low as possible. They already had several wounded soldiers and the personnel that was intact was very scarce. Sorry for the delay, Taisho. I hope my presence does not alter your orders, Yasaka said politely. No problem, Yasaka-sama. I think having your wits here could help us find the best possible plan. Are you aware of what we are facing? I know, but the large number that is coming, it doesn't seem like there's any hope of survival. Do you know how so many troops arrived without us noticing? Unfortunately, no, that's why we're trying to get as many troops as possible without risking the city's safety. He replied while clenching his hands. I still don't understand how they can do this. It was a few days ago that they attacked. We thought there were only a few more left, but I understand. Father was seriously injured in the last confrontation. It's lucky that he's recovering so quickly, although it seems that this time, only a miracle could save us. I couldn't agree more, but now is not the time to complain, we must prepare for the siege. Taisho, Yasaka-sama, several attacks are being reported in the northern area. The soldiers in the area are being outnumbered by the enemy. A soldier said desperately, interrupting them as they tried to come up with a plan. This won't end well. We don't have any more time, we'll have to do everything as things happen. While he was speaking he was preparing armor and weapons. I'll have to go to the front, since we don't have the leader, I'll have to make a double effort so that our momentary weakness isn't noticed. He finished speaking while looking at Yasaka. Will you also join this fight, Yasaka-sama? I don't think there is any option against Taisho, I am prepared to go to the battlefield. Even if it means my premature death. She answered with determination in her voice. She had been trained by her father, she was not a weak person, but she wished she had the time to finish her training. North Zone. Come on, we have to hold out long enough until reinforcements arrive, shouted the lieutenant who was fighting alongside the other yokai. You guys, he shouted again, looking at the Tengu flying overhead. Cast some area magic. With that shout, the Tengu who were casting a few lower range spells stopped and began to concentrate to cast a larger scale spell. Kui-ai, the enemy's magic attacks are increasing, shouted a soldier standing next to him. I know, I ordered the Tengu to cast an area spell, for now we will have to endure their attacks, until they manage to finish the spell. But there are so many soldiers, how can we hold out long enough? I don't know. And I won't stay still until I see how it all ends. Come on, we have to go to the front, cover my back. This will possibly be our last battle together, he said as he prepared himself and placed his weapon in his hand. Come on soldiers, we can't retreat now. If we lose here, the leader's victory will be worthless. Let's not dishonor his great effort. With that last shout, the lieutenant went with his soldiers to what would possibly be their last battle. Wait for me, my dear daughter, this will all be over soon. It was the last thing the lieutenant thought when he attacked. South Zone. Chui, the enemies are starting to move, what plan of action do we take? Asked the soldier next to him. We will do as we were told, those are Taisho's orders, we are supposed to have a few kitsune and nekomata, that should be enough for the moment to stop them and attack stealthily. The soldier nodded and went to tell the others what the lieutenant had planned. I hope we can get through this, Taisho, he said, staring into space and letting out a sigh. I have to join, I hope this strategy will help reduce their numbers. He put on his armor that was on one side of the room where he was and took the weapon that was leaning against the wall near him. East area. Anything new? Asked the lieutenant who was looking at the soldier who had entered. None at the moment Kui, but it was reported that some Yuki Onna arrived as reinforcements. Ice might work, but I don't think they can make it work long term. Should we attack Kui? What else can we do? Taisho also gave the order to attack and engage as best as possible in this sudden attack. And we might be very lucky to have reinforcements with strong support and attack power. Make the soldiers as distractions and place some Yuki Onna next to them, they should be able to freeze the enemies long enough to kill them. Okay Kui. What did they want to achieve with this rebellion? There is no reason to try to destroy one of the best mandates we have had for years. The lieutenant asked himself. That's not important now, it only remains to see if we can survive with the greatest number of people. West Zone. Hurry up, we can't let them get past our defense, the lieutenant shouted. We know that there are many more of them than us, but that doesn't mean we should give up. That's why we must fight until we have the last drop of energy we have left. He shouted again to motivate his soldiers. Among the four flanks, this was the weakest of all, as it didn't have many troops available. The Tengu stay in the rear. The Kitsune stay behind the Yuki Onna. Support with some illusion magic to confuse the enemy. He shouted while swinging a sword, cutting the yokai in front of him. Sir, the base is reporting that there are fluctuations in the area. What does that matter at this point? I don't know sir, it's the information they sent us. Completely killing the enemy in front of him, the lieutenant spoke again. Leave that aside, we're not interested, once we're done here we can see whatever happens there. Without saying more, both returned to fight the enemy forces, with mixed feelings, since this battle would be the first of many and even worse was that they had to kill several of their own kind. With Naruto. Well, I never expected that it would feel like this to completely exit that portal, said the blonde, slightly dizzy. Although he had experimented with a part of his body and the ones doing it were clones, in his memories he didn't feel any dizziness. I'll never get into that thing again, Kuroka said who was on the ground. Oni-sama, you have to get up. Why are you on the ground? Sharon asked as she saw her sister lying on the ground with eyes that looked like spirals. I think we should let her rest for a moment, besides, how are you not dizzy? Why should I be? You're welcome, forget about it, the blonde replied with clear doubt in his head. Putting aside his slight headache, the blonde began to appreciate his surroundings. It seemed to be a town, but surprisingly it was empty, the people had disappeared. And it didn't seem like it had been for a long time since the streets were relatively clean. Why is everything like this? Naruto asked himself seeing that there was no one there. It didn't take long for him to be able to lightly sense several chakra signatures. Kurama, can you tell how many there are? I can't give you an exact number since there are several presences that disappear, but there should be around 10,000 and they are scattered around the area. Maybe something is attacking the place. You are not far from reality, most presences feel very hostile to a few. Why do I always have to appear at times like this? Couldn't I at least get to a place without any conflict once? That would be nice Gaki, at least once to get there and not have to appear near the problems. Nodding internally, he looked at the sisters beside him, knowing that if he brought them along they would likely be targets, but if he left them they would be too. It took only a few seconds for the solution to come to him. In making a hand position he made several clouds of smoke appear. Kuroka, Sharon, both turned to look at him. I need you to stay with my clones for a moment, I need to inspect something. I don't think it will take long, I'll be right back. He disappeared in a blur from the eyes of both sisters who didn't even have time to ask where he was going. They stared at each other and shrugged their shoulders. If he told them he would be back in a moment and left them with protection, then there wouldn't be any problem. They could use this time to become fully conscious again. This place doesn't look bad at all. Nya. Kuroka said as she looked around. Do you know where we are, Oni-sama? Sharon asked. I don't know. Nya, but I'm sure it's not some hostile place. The conditions of this place are very good, maybe in some town in the human world. Nya, Kuroka answered. He turned to look at the clones who seemed to have taken the role of guards seriously as they kept looking around, searching for any hostility. Where will we be? Nya. With Yasaka. Taisho, this situation doesn't seem to be improving, Yasaka said, tired and with erratic breathing. I know. Unfortunately we don't have reinforcements, we can't count on his father at the moment either. How is it possible that they managed to do this? There were supposed to be almost nothing left of the rebels, the general thought. Maybe, if I could join, but it's impossible, father hasn't made me his successor yet, I can't use him. Yasaka thought as she watched her opportunities slowly fade away. As she watched everyone around her fight, she began to think of one thing that could possibly give her the power they needed. Taisho, I have a plan that might work. As she screamed at the general she was fighting, he repelled his enemy's attack and retreated until he was almost next to her. Gasp! Which one could it be? Yasaka-sama, he asked, exhausted. He had also participated in the battle before this one and was not as well rested as he would have liked. It may be a bit dangerous, but if I use my power as a QB, then at least for a period it would give us the advantage to release this side and help others. But, you know that you still wouldn't be able to hold out for so long without being connected to Kyoto. If you do, it could have a bad repercussion. Even if you're already an adult, you shouldn't underestimate the risks. The general told her with a bit of anguish. He had seen that Yasaka had a lot of power, but she couldn't control it completely, not yet. If she were connected to Kyoto, maybe it could be something reasonable since the energy she expends wouldn't affect as much. I know, but there doesn't seem to be any other solution, and it will only be for a moment. I'll manage to reduce the number of enemies and you'll be able to finish them all off without any problems. Without waiting for any response, he began to channel all his chakra to be able to take the form of a QB. However, before I could finish the preparations, the soldiers in front of her stopped abruptly. They were all extremely still, as if time had stopped. She stopped and could see a man who had his back to all his compatriots, watching as he slowly sheathed a katana. A loud click was heard throughout the place, as the man let out a sigh and seemed to run again. He saw something he never thought he would see in his life, a shower of blood that lasted for a few seconds, at the same time as a large part of his enemies were dismembered, and the few that remained extremely still. She just stood there with her eyes open, watching and admiring in a strange way the great carnage that occurred in just a few seconds. She stared at the back of the man who still did not turn around. Until, the man began to slowly turn, giving a serious look and walking slowly towards where she was with the general. Most of her allies stood still, as if they didn't want to anger the individual in front of their eyes. A few stood trembling and a few people swallowed all the fear they had and went to protect her without caring if her life would end at that very moment. Then the man stood about 5 meters away and began to speak. Sorry about all that, but could you tell me where I am? He asked with a relaxed posture, staring at the general and Yasaka. The silence was deadly, both the rebels and the allies around Yasaka were still. It seemed like they didn't even want to breathe, thinking that if they moved a single muscle more, they would die without even realizing it. Hello. It may not have been a good introduction, but I would really like to know if you can tell me where I am, said the blonde, still with the katana in his hand. Yasaka simply stared fleetingly at the sheathed katana she held and at the same time looked at the blonde, not knowing what she should fear more, the weapon she held or the man in front of her. Letting out a light sigh that wasn't audible to everyone, she gathered her courage and looked the blonde in the eyes. How could I not know where he is if he speaks perfect Japanese? He asked without hesitation. Japanese. I think I heard that somewhere, he said thoughtfully. Naruto remembered hearing that word somewhere, but right now he couldn't say when it was. Don't you know you're speaking Japanese? If I'm honest, I didn't know that was the name of the language I speak. After finishing saying those words, his eyes opened as if he had remembered something. Unfortunately for the spectators, this seemed like a sign of attack, causing most to become nervous and internally prepare for their upcoming death. I remembered, he exclaimed with a smile. How did he change his attitude so quickly? Yasaka wondered as she looked at the now smiling blonde who had been serious moments before. What did you just remember? He asked with a drop of sweat. I remembered that Japanese is supposed to be spoken by Japanese people. Now, this is so timely, I was looking for this country and I got it on the first try. He said while nodding several times, implying that he was lucky in some way. Ah, so could you tell me why you wanted to come to Japan? Yasaka asked him again. Oh, well, he couldn't finish speaking as he suddenly became serious again. What is this? The blonde wondered, extremely confused. For some reason he felt a very strange and almost infinite energy. He couldn't find the place of origin and that put him on alert. For a moment he was thinking that the Jubi had arrived where he was now, but without taking more than an instant he discarded everything he had in his head. His gaze turned relatively menacing and he looked back at Yasaka. I think we'll have to leave this conversation for later, right now there's something I need to do. He said as he began to move in the opposite direction to her. Wait, he shouted with a certain force that could be heard even by the enemy in the back rows. The blonde paused for a moment and turned his head, staring at Yasaka. She took it as if he had told her to speak, and she did. Look, I won't beat around the bush. Could you help us right now? She asked hopefully. With a man like the blonde as an ally they could end all their skirmishes at once. Why should I? Was what the blonde said while giving the blonde a hard look. While she could sense that all the soldiers beside her were conflicted in killing what seemed like their enemies, she didn't see the whole picture. He could have helped the enemies and wouldn't know it. That was one of the mistakes he had made when he had instantly jumped trying to protect the people in front of him, who at this moment were still terrified. He had seen people who could easily act like the good guys, but right now he could sense people and tell if they were lying or not. He wanted to make sure he had done the right thing. Or he would have to fix it and finish what he had done. Why, was all that came out of Yasaka's mouth. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't find any reason that would make the person in front of her understand that she should support her. It was an external factor that had just appeared. He wouldn't know if they were telling him the truth, and to be fair, if a person swore to be the good guys during the war, then it was very likely that they were the opposite. She knew perfectly well that in a war there was no such thing as the words of good and evil. He racked his brains as best he could to come up with a good reason, something that would help him understand that they were the ones who were attacked. Don't you have anything to say? The blonde asked when he saw that the face of the girl he was talking to was in a noticeable conflict. That had slightly caught his attention. If they were the bad guys, then they shouldn't be in confusion and would ask him to attack to help them massacre everyone in front of him. There were several other factors that helped to know who was telling the truth without having to use any censor ability, but for the moment they were not necessary to mention all of them. Okay, I don't know how to say it, okay. I can't just blurt things out like that because if anyone shows up, for all I know you could be the enemy and this demonstration could be a distraction, Yasaka said without loosening her determined gaze in front of the blonde. If you put it that way, you might be right. But, let me tell you, I am not an enemy. So what are you supposed to be? A simple traveler. That should describe what I am. Now why do you want my help? He said without looking away from his serious gaze. I need it. No, we need it to end this senseless attack once and for all. You probably didn't see the beginning of it all, but I did, and I swear I'm not lying when I tell you that we only defended ourselves. Those who ended up dying under your hand attacked for no reason that I can know of. She answered while inside she was praying to everything she knew that the man in front of her would believe her and not attack them. Okay, I believe you. He said simply, as he advanced towards the enemies. Are really? She asked incredulously. not waiting for the blonde to answer since he was moving further and further away. And Naruto didn't answer, he just kept walking while calculating how many enemies were left. He took a deep breath and began to place his hand on the handle of his katana. Okay, one more time, he said mentally as he got into position and did the technique he had tried the first time with Yamato. Judgment cut, he whispered, but it seemed like everyone had heard his voice. It only took a few seconds for everyone to start seeing how several spheres appeared, and where they appeared they left cuts everywhere. Naruto stood still for a second longer and left the position he was in, slowly sheathing his katana again. This time there was no blood splattering in droves, most of the cuts were so clean that the bodies they were cut from hadn't noticed they had been separated into several pieces. Click. And with that all the remaining enemies ended up on the ground. While the blonde continued with a complicated look, watching how he had easily finished everything, he let out a sigh and turned around leaving a neutral look. He could debate his feelings later. Does this solve your problem? He asked as he approached Yasaka, who seemed to be the only one who was perfectly fine after seeing the blonde's attack for the second time. Yeah, I guess. For now yes, he replied without knowing what he should say to her. Well, I have to do something important right now. But, this isn't over. They're still attacking us, he said as he watched the blonde man about to leave. Oh, that. I guess I can't refuse now, give me a few minutes and I'll sort everything out, but as I said before, I need to make sure of something first. See you later. As soon as he finished speaking, the blonde left at high speed, leaving a blurry image where he was standing. Yasaka-sama, the general said behind her. Something wrong? Are you okay? Why do you ask that? It's because it won't stop shaking. The general was right, Yasaka had never experienced that strange feeling of relief and fear at the same time in her entire life, so she didn't know how she should act. This is just because of exhaustion, I was reaching my limits. He said, not wanting to say his true thoughts. Somehow, helplessness was acting strongly within her. She saw how a single person had defeated all of her enemies in the blink of an eye, something that she along with several soldiers and the general could not do. She felt as if all the training she had gone through was useless. No, that's not important now. We have to regroup and start helping the other fronts, he thought as he watched how several soldiers were injured but could still continue. I guess we can't just obediently stand still and wait to be saved, Yasaka whispered with her gaze downcast. She took a deep breath as she closed her eyes and opened them tightly with a determined look as she exhaled. Well, it's not time to stand still. Those who can still move and keep fighting follow me. We're going to one of the other fronts to end this senseless rebellion as soon as possible, she exclaimed looking at all the troops in front of her. Let's get this over with so we can see our families again. All of the yokai present seemed to gain great morale, each thinking of what they wanted to see again and protect. Deciding that they would go all the way to the end just to be able to see them again. With Naruto. While the blonde was just a few seconds away from arriving, he tried to use that short period to have a moment to talk to his partner. Hey, Kurama, he said in a whisper. What's wrong, Gaki? Does it feel like this to have killed so many people? Feel something? Yes, they were the first ones I killed, but it feels strange. I can't understand what you're trying to tell me. Why should you feel something when you kill someone? The Biju answered the blonde's thoughts with disdain. I guess it doesn't matter now, I have to finish this sooner, he said while letting out an internal sigh. Whatever, but if you want to understand that kind of feeling, I don't think I'm the one, but, that should have happened before. It was surprising that you've never been able to kill someone in the elemental nations. The Biju fell silent while the blonde's gaze was aimless. Even so, this will not affect in the slightest what you are. You are still an idiotic and impulsive boy. Even if you kill the entire planet, for me you will still be the same. Let it stay engraved in your head because I will not say it again. Once he finished speaking, he gave the blonde a small smile as he landed next to the sisters who accompany him on his trip. Hello Nya, Kuroka greeted upon seeing the blonde again. Oh, you could recognize me. Yes Nya, I was practicing while you were gone and I managed to sense your chakra. Although I must say that I'm not good enough to sense it completely yet Nya, It's somehow very complicated to sense your chakra. I wonder why that is nya. She said while looking at the blonde with a complex and interested look. I don't know, but I guess you'll find out someday. She answered while smiling. She looked to her side and could see the little silver-haired girl again. She was a few meters away from them while being watched by shadow clones. Apparently she was interested in the nearby buildings. Are you feeling better? Yes, I recovered a few moments after you left nya, but when we were in the underworld, Sharon told me that I had more energy than before nya. It's not bad at all, right nya? I don't think so, although it's normal for me to have more energy than usual. He stopped dead when he was about to talk to her about a part of the Fourth Ninja War. He felt like he could trust her, but he didn't feel ready to talk about it yet. Not even Serafall knew something like that. It felt strange for him to be so distrustful. He didn't know how, but he was changing little by little, without understanding what was driving his change and trusting nature. That method I used always gave extra energy to anyone. It helps them recover and be in their best state. Honestly, I don't know if it will do that, but I suppose it could work like that, he thought with a drop of sweat, hoping that what he said was credible. Oh, so that was it nya, I guess it's no problem then. Oh, by the way, why did you leave? I didn't pay attention if you said anything nya. He said with a smile. This girl, one can't be that carefree, right? Look who's talking. What do you mean by that? The blonde couldn't get an answer as the clones he had left patrolling the place vanished, showing him the current situation. He let out a sigh and seriously thought about whether his luck was extremely bad. He stopped a few seconds later and this time he thought about what he should do. He had said that he would help the girl in a kimono. I know I said I would help them, but how will their allies know I will help them? It took you a while, but you finally noticed it. Anyway, you just have to get closer to where she is. Oh, that's right. Well, thanks for telling me, Kurama. I guess we'll finish this quickly. And the blonde stood for a few seconds without knowing what else to say until Kurama snorted. Naruto, you probably feel strange and don't understand how you are so calm despite having killed several people, but this was the real reason why ninjas existed in your time, simply weapons that had to obey the orders of their superiors and benefit their village. Your father did it, your mother too, even you did it, only you never got to kill anyone. The blonde just stood there listening to what his partner was saying. He really didn't know what kind of attitude he should have at that moment. His head kept spinning and spinning. Look, I'm not good with this stuff about feelings, but don't let it bother you so much. Your father did something much worse and he was still the same, but if you still want to talk to someone about it, I could try something. No, it's not necessary now. I just have to clear my mind and I'm sure I'll know what to do. Without saying anything else, the blonde disconnected his link with Kurama. He would have liked to have a little help with his slight problem, but now he had to finish a favor he was doing. Once finished he could do whatever he wanted. Again nya, the Nekomata asked herself. The blonde seemed to space out too much, sometimes a few seconds, other times a few minutes. Surely, whatever makes it necessary to neglect it must be very important if it is done from time to time. Is something wrong nya? I asked, staring at him. The blonde seemed to have a strange and somewhat overwhelmed look, but it only took a few moments for him to return to his usual self. No, he answered while trying to look away, since they were both unintentionally too close and he had previous experience knowing what would happen if a small collision occurred between them. Suspicious nya, why are you looking away he said while having a playful look and trying to get into the blonde's field of vision. You're welcome, it's just your imagination, he replied as he turned his back. Kuroka made a mocking smile and jumped towards the blonde's back, causing him to almost fall as he didn't expect her to do that. Hey, why did you do that? You almost made me fall. He asked angrily at the black-haired girl. I wonder, the Nekomata was hanging on the blonde while her mocking smile remained unperturbed. Ne-sama, what are you doing? The silver-haired girl had arrived with a confused look upon seeing her sister about to bite the blonde. Never in his short life had he seen his sister act like that. She looked like she was about to eat something, in addition to the strange smile she had and the mocking look. Nothing nya. He answered happily. So could you please get off? I wanted to tell you something important, said the blonde with one eye twitching. The brunette obeyed the order and got off while maintaining her smile, only this time it was normal, without any strange expression on her. Now, I'll go with the short version. There's a war or something going on and we're in Japan. Anything else nya, he asked calmly while caressing his sister who was on his legs. Really? Hey, Kurama, am I really looking at the most carefree person I've ever met? Oh, you were saying something. With the answer the Biju gave him, he could simply clench his fist tightly as he complained about fellow Bijus bothering him. No, there's nothing else, or at least nothing you two need to worry about. Anyway, I don't know what I should do with you, the blonde said, sighing. What do you mean nya? I'm undecided whether you should come with me or continue waiting here until I finish the business I have to do, he replied with one of his hands resting on his jaw and seriously thinking about what he should do. I think it would be best to stay here, there is no one and you can leave several of your clones nya, I'm sure they will protect us until you return, as they have done until now nya. Kuroka finished with a smile as she stood up and carried her sister with her. Are you sure? Yes, your clones are very useful right now, don't you think? But, it's not like they can resist much when it comes to a fight, they are more like support. No problem nya. I'm not helpless either, and since you say they're support. As long as no armies come that can destroy the city, we'll be fine nya, don't worry. She finished with a serious look, giving her the clear message that even if she wasn't the strongest, as long as she had her clones to support her, she could manage. Fine, I'll leave you a few extra, in case something unexpected happens. And if it's too dangerous, I'll come as quickly as possible. Without saying anything else, he made about 50 clones, that should be enough even if his enemies are too strong. If one of them dissipates, it would give him the necessary information. Sure nya, don't worry, do what you have to do and you can tell me what happened next. He finished with a smile. Meanwhile, the blonde and the black-haired girl continued talking, the silver-haired girl who was there felt left out. She was literally next to her sister and they hadn't looked at her at all when they returned, causing a big drop on her head. Ne-sama, she thought, somewhat irritated and confused at being completely ignored. While an aura of depression appeared over her and made circles on the ground. Well, since we're done with this, it's time to help. Wait, they were humans. No, and I never thought it would take you this long to notice. You could easily feel how all of them there had chakra. The blonde wanted to hit himself in the head, how could he have been so reckless not even knowing what they were? He let out a sigh and resigned himself, anyway he hoped that they were those so-called yokai, if he remembered correctly they should be the only ones who could use chakra like him. See you later. Without saying anything else, he left the place. At the same time, both sisters had confused looks. They simply shrugged their shoulders, the blonde was not the most normal person they had seen, he was full of intrigue and curiosity, for both of them, seeing that he would space out every now and then left them with even more doubts, but if there was one thing they could be sure of, it was that they could feel calm the more time they spent with the blonde. With Yasaka. We're almost done on this side, the blonde said, with a dull look. With each death of her compatriots she felt as if a small part of her was broken. In all her years of life she had never been taught to kill those of her own kind or race, she had always been told that she should keep everyone together and live peacefully with each other. But now, in this unexpected civil war, she felt as if those teachings were worthless. They might call her weak, but she was not one to go around killing everyone she saw. Her own mentality seemed to wane the longer she remained on the battlefield. Still, she decided to put it aside. In the future, she would be the next leader of the yokai, with great responsibilities and many more problems, along with problematic decisions. She would use this event for herself, to be able to evolve, to learn from the mistakes she would make and to be able to cope with the adversities to come. All because she wanted to be the best leader she could aspire to be, without her own race killing each other, without hatred existing within them, she wanted to make Kyoto the best place a yokai could and should be. Yasaka-sama, are you okay? Why does Taisho ask that? She seems to be paler. If she needs to rest she should. I'm fine. Don't worry. Besides, what kind of image would I leave if I left simply because I felt bad in the middle of battle? The general remained silent, accepting the words of his leader's daughter. He decided to leave it at that. He knew how stubborn she could be. It was not for nothing that he saw her grow up practically since she was born. Okay, but at least I should be able to make a strategic retreat so I can. Without being able to finish speaking for the second time, they watched as the enemies began to fall one by one at high speed, leaving only a light golden blur. I hope it's that boy and not someone else. I don't think I can handle something else like what he did before. Yasaka was sighing internally, praying that whoever did this was the same person who helped them before. Her psyche didn't seem like it could hold out for much longer right now. It only took a few minutes for all of their enemies to end up on the ground, some with parts of their bodies fractured, others inside craters from which they did not seem to be able to get out, and several more with serious injuries that made it impossible for them to move. Sigh, that was harder than I thought it would be. A blond man who appeared in a blur next to the general and Yasaka complained. He didn't want to have any more deaths for the moment, but that didn't mean he would simply leave everyone unharmed. If he could at least incapacitate them for a long time, it should do the trick. Yasaka just went with the flow. The blonde next to her seemed to have a few tricks and she'd rather not be reacting to every single thing he did for the sake of her heart and mind. The general was different though. If it hadn't been for her years of training she would have thrown the weapon she had straight at the blonde. She didn't know if he would avoid it or hit him squarely, but she didn't like being caught off guard so easily. Hello, Naruto said with a smile, drawing a smile from both of them. Maybe it's a little late, but I'll introduce myself, I'm Naruto. He said with one of his hands lightly scratching his head. The blonde was nervous, simply because it was his first meeting, so to speak, and the vast majority of people were scared of him. And he didn't know how to act so that they wouldn't get so nervous when they saw him. It probably is, but I don't think it's that important, considering how things are. Yasaka said with a sigh. Anyway, it's a pleasure to meet you, Naruto-san. My name is Yasaka, she said with a small bow. It is a pleasure for me too to see you again, Naruto-san. I am General Daiki. Same here. Now, I know I was going to help you, but I think there's a little problem. The blonde said, scratching his head. Which one would it be? Yasaka asked, with the general nodding beside her. Well, something as simple as reporting my participation. All of their soldiers might take me as hostile if I appear out of nowhere. The two people in front of the blonde remained silent, until the general slapped his hand to his face. Sigh, how could I have let that pass? Said the general, his head downcast. Yasaka stared at the general with a drop of sweat and an awkward smile. She had also left him behind. Now that we have solved the problem, Yasaka said as the general immediately began to inform all the messengers. How about some information on the two remaining fronts? Oh, that would be great. I don't know anything about the battlefield, if you could at least tell me the general situation. No problem. Now, as soon as he finished speaking, he placed a map on a table. These are the two remaining points, he said while pointing at the places. The one here is lightly controlled. We had several soldiers with enough skill to be able to deal with the rebels, so we could leave them for last and the troops could rest a bit. Although in a few minutes the general and I will go there to see if it is necessary to finish quickly or if they can be contained without help. He walked to the other spot and spoke again. This is where we need reinforcements, but the numbers aren't enough, though with you with us, numbers shouldn't matter. We were hoping you'd go there and finish it off before there are more casualties. Apparently, it's where there are more enemies. According to reports, they've sent more people to take that area from us. Also, they have several good mages with long-range spells. I don't think there's a problem, I'll take care of them, the blonde replied. No sooner had he finished speaking than a messenger came rushing up, trying to say something as best he could between gasps. Yasaka-sama, they are attacking the place where the leader is. The news completely alerted the two yokai who were at Naruto's side. What's going on? The blonde asked, intrigued. For the moment, they seemed to be at a stalemate. They haven't moved much. At first they attacked with everything, but they retreated and are now stationary. The messenger answered, eliciting a slight sigh from Yasaka. It seems you'll have to reevaluate the situation, but while you do that I'll finish the front you assigned me to, so you'll only have to focus on helping your leader. Without saying anything else the blonde disappeared in a blur. Sigh, I'm lucky he's not an enemy. Yasaka thought as she watched Naruto disappear without her being able to see him. Now, finishing this will be easy, she said with a small smile. I have finished sending the messages, Yasaka-sama. Okay, now it's our turn to attack. With Naruto. What happens now? Well, it's complicated to explain, but I have a strange feeling. Strange feeling? There's something about what they told me that doesn't add up. Why would their enemies be stationed when they were previously attacking? Even if you're right, I couldn't understand what they're thinking. I guess this time you'll have to take advantage of the power you have. Do you understand now how bad it is to jump into a war without knowing anything? Sigh, yeah, I guess so. Without saying another word, the blonde got close enough to the designated spot and saw the panorama of the battle that was in front of him. They don't seem to be doing badly in this battle. In fact, they seem to be superior to their enemies, he whispered, seeing how those he was supposed to help were leading the battle in the right direction. That means they're not idiots who just send out attacks for no reason. Also, don't you see how they're gradually moving slower and slower? Should I attack now, or see how it all plays out? I don't think whatever they do here will do you any good, just go destroy those yokai and get this over with. Naruto nodded and before launching himself to attack he took a quick look at all the enemies there were, nodded to himself, bent his knees and moved at great speed so that no one could see him so easily. It only took a few seconds to see the rebels on the ground, with several wounds that could be fatal if not treated quickly. Lieutenant's point of view. We were almost finishing our battle. At first we were low on morale, we were heavily outnumbered, but once we attacked we could tell that the attackers weren't complicated, so morale went up. Slightly, but at least we weren't so worried that all of them were experts. What I did notice was that I hadn't recognized almost any of the rebels, if any. Kyoto was home to most of the yokai in existence, so it seemed very strange to see so many of us attacking the birthplace of our race. At first I thought I would be facing several friends or acquaintances, but that was not the case. I was left confused. Where did they all come from then? I knew there were several yokai all over Asia, but there weren't that many, or at least there shouldn't be. The numbers we were supposed to have were almost literally all the rebels. Something was definitely going on here, but there was little I could do. I was only a lieutenant, I had no jurisdiction to know, and the power was not on my side either. I was hoping that once this battle was over, this whole matter would be resolved. But, once I was out of my thoughts, a message came through. Sir, we have been notified that reinforcements are being sent, the soldier next to me told me. I guess a few extra hands wouldn't hurt. How many are there? It's just one, sir. Just one. That sounded strange. Why did they send just one yokai as support? However, my doubts didn't go that far after seeing how the enemies began to fall. It was in the blink of an eye, our enemies were falling in droves. One after another, each with fatal wounds. I stared, not knowing how to react to the ease with which they had fallen. I knew they weren't expert fighters, much less experts in the use of chakra, but the numbers they had couldn't be carried so easily. I just closed my eyelids for one more time and there were no more enemies. Some were almost on the verge of death and others had several parts of their body fractured. And in the middle of all that, I could see a blur. He was staring at us with a serious look. Could he be our reinforcement? I asked with great anxiety, hoping for a positive answer. Unfortunately, I didn't get a response. The soldier beside me was simply shaking with a panicked face. I sighed in surprise as I saw that I was one of the few who wasn't so shocked by what we had just seen. Ah, said the blonde who was standing in front of everyone. Without knowing that he was holding back a sigh, I let it out, letting go of a great anxiety with him. The fact that he was talking to us gave me hope that he wasn't going to attack us just for being here. I ventured to advance towards him, staying a few meters away. Excuse me, but are you the reinforcement they sent? I asked him to confirm my doubts. It could very well be another person and the blonde in front of me was simply passing by. Yes, they told me to go help them. Is there anyone hurt? He asked me. I couldn't say that. Unfortunately there were several casualties, I said while watching his reaction. He seemed a little downcast but it wasn't noticeable after a moment. Okay, since everything is fine here, I have to go, there is still something else to do. And when he finished speaking he gave a small nod as he disappeared in another blur. And I sighed again. Maybe I should get a cigarette, this situation is certainly beyond my understanding. Okay guys, we've survived this, now we have to worry about our wounded. I shouted, watching as only a few seemed to have reacted. Get moving at once, this is no time to be lazy, we have much more to do. After my second scream, they started to move. At least they didn't seem so shocked anymore. Well, who wouldn't be? Someone appeared out of nowhere and defeated everyone in a matter of seconds. I didn't think there were so many yokai that could do that. What yokai will it be? I whispered to myself. From what little I could see, he had markings on his cheeks, he kind of reminded me of a kitsune. But, I think I'll put that aside for now. I have a lot of other things to do and there's no time to be thinking about what that boy was supposed to be. Back with Naruto. That was very soft. Is something wrong that you can't eliminate your enemies this time? Kurama asked, slightly tired of asking over and over again what was happening with the blonde. It's not like I didn't eliminate them. I just think I exaggerated a bit by literally tearing the others into pieces. Besides, you saw how they still reacted the same as the other yokai, only with less fear at not seeing their enemies in small pieces. The blonde replied, lightly scratching his cheek. It was likely that they didn't believe he was good when they saw how he ended up tearing all his enemies into pieces. I guess it makes sense. The soldiers before these must have been so scared of you that a simple salute and they would be wetting their pants while vomiting, remembering how there were more than just pieces of flesh and blood everywhere, the Biju said, amused as he remembered the look on all the yokai's faces. Sure, Naruto answered as he continued to advance towards the meeting point. I think I need a little vacation after this, the blonde whispered. Up to this point he kept getting into trouble after trouble. Without waiting any longer, he went straight to Yasaka's chakra. He was lucky to be a censor, since they had moved from the previous spot. Who would attack the yokai? He asked himself. At first glance they didn't seem like bad people, and thanks to the fact that he could sense the emotions of others. I couldn't sense any evil in them, but there was confusion and fear. Surely induced by the civil war they were waging. Also, what was that thing I felt before? Naruto couldn't stop having doubts in the new world. His uncertainty always increased with each step he took. He just hoped that getting the answers to everything unknown wouldn't be disastrous. A few seconds later he was able to reach where Yasaka should be. Everything seemed to be going normally. The allied troops were fighting and seemed to be constantly gaining ground. Now, where are those two? He whispered, thinking about the general and Yasaka. Looking around, they were nowhere to be found. They're not here. But, it was here where I took their chakra, he said with extreme confusion. Move already, Kurama shouted. The blonde was surprised by the Biju's scream and moved without wasting time. Only to see how the place where he was standing was nothing but dust. TCH, I didn't think you could dodge that. Someone said behind the blonde. Hey, I didn't expect that, he said as he looked at a person he had seen before. Can I assume this is part of your plan? He asked, looking the person straight in the eyes. I think that's pretty obvious, he replied dismissively, while a strange aura began to surround him. I guess there's nothing else to say. Daiki, the blonde said with Yamato appearing in his hand. Danilo just smiled, he knew there was no need to say another word. And as long as he had the power he had now, even the blonde in front of him wouldn't be a problem even if he moved too fast. Without wasting any more time, they both jumped straight at each other.